Sir, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault, and you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict, and boy, do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy
They
there.
got the wrong guy. The dog was biting him.
He roughened him up quite a bit. There's a lawsuit.
This police unit is trying to box him in, but instead he just crashes into the tree, and away he goes. But let me widen it out. I don't know how far this will take him. Yeah, he's basically cornered. Wow, look at this. Off the road and onto the freeway. Oh my gosh, so he is on the freeway, going wrong side of the road here on the 91 freeway, going eastbound in the westbound lane. This car is smoking. I pray to God that the vehicles that are coming in his direction see this car coming at them and they're able to stop before we see a collision.
Oh man, just kicking back to one of the fun police chases. The audio alone gets my blood pumping. That is such a good one. This police officer is going to block him off, but instead he just crashes into a tree and he is off. That was so good. That was so good. I found that sound effect just hidden amongst all my others. I was just going through on lunch, just listening to everything, and that was buried deep amongst all the other sound effects. Let's see. I'm sure there's another one in there somewhere. I haven't played this one in a long time. Oh, it's after. Too close to lunch. I can't play the Your Son one yet. But we'll do this one. We're gonna have a little bit of. This is a quick little contest. No prize other than bragging rights. But name this judge.
Thanks. I don't want pickles either.
There you go. Which judge doesn't want pickles? All right. Welcome back to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict. Thank you very much. We are here for the afternoon session of trial. The Hannah Gutierrez trial, which is just now supposed to be coming back from the break. We have about 4 minutes. Heads up. Yes. We have Judge Cedric Simpson. I think it's Simpson. It's not Newman. Now I'm confused. It's Simpson, Judge Cedric Simpson. Yes, we've got a few judges on here. This is a.
If you will bring the jury.
That's who we have. Newman. You can tell their voices apart.
Thanks. I don't want pickles either.
If you will bring the jury.
Very, very distinct voices on both of them. But all right, welcome back. Good to have you here. We're just about to get underway. How was your lunch? I had Mrs. R.A. did a crock pot pork roast, so we did like pulled pork, but we didn't make it like they do here in North. Can I take just a minute? And tell you, I live in an area that claims to have invented barbecue. Like literally, it's like it's on par with Al Gore claiming to have invented the internet. Okay, it's right up there. We claim we invented, and not just any barbecue, but whole hog barbecue, where you cook the entire pig. Okay, this is not something you can go down to Home Depot and you pick up a new grill and you can barbecue a pig. These are like trailer mounted grills that cook the entire pig, wood fired whole hog barbecue. Okay. We're so invested in this that we are part of the chain of, I don't know what they call it, destinations that participate in a barbecue contest, and not like you have a state fair and everyone makes a cupcake and you're the winner. No, this is like a serious. We have people who drive serious big rig trucks dragging their barbecue from across the country, from Kansas City, from Texas, from down further south where they use mustard, which we won't talk about, from all over North Carolina. And they flood our town. They bring these trucks. These people are the professionals of pig picking cooking. And they bring all their trucks and the entire town blocked off. They will shut off the roads. The lines, all four parking stalls downtown are taken. And all around, every field, every alleyway is filled with one of these trucks with a fancy chrome trailer and a barbecue. And everyone is issued a pig. And they start cooking. And let me tell you, it smells like heaven. It is unbelievable. We have the finest chefs that have ever graced the grill that come down and that they put it on. It's all at the same time. Everybody's cooking. You just walk downtown. It smells delicious. Guess what is not allowed? I'm sorry to go on a rant this early, but guess what is not allowed? We are not allowed to taste what they cook. We, the citizens, the ones who can't park in one of the 4 downtown parking spots, who can't walk along the sidewalks or drive downtown past the post office, we're not allowed to taste it. That's reserved for the people who are the official tasters and who will do the judging. So the whole town is just filled with this aroma, and we're like, I wish I could have some. That would be nice, but no, there's a town ordinance against that. Okay? Instead, what do? We walk downtown, and we've got the old bank building, and we walk up and we just lick the wall. Because the smoke, the flavor on the wall is delicious. It permeates the entire town, and that's all we get is just a taste of all the good cooking. And as soon as they're done, everyone packs up, prize is given, and they drive away, and we get nothing. Zero. I'm left licking the bank, and that's all we have. I want to change the law. The bank wall tastes delicious. I don't know if you've tried this, but clearly, if you've ever been in a little town like this where they cook the whole herd of pigs at the same time, just all the different barbecues, it's like heaven. It is. I don't really lick the wall. I just get real close and sniff. But anyway, I don't know. Why don't they let us eat it? I mean, they cooked the whole pig. Are you telling me the taste testers are eating every single person's whole pig? It doesn't add up. I'm saying something stinks in Denmark, but it smells great in downtown. I can tell you that. All right. We will talk about that later. Like hashtag lick the bank. Kim R. Kim, welcome. You were first in chat. Well, let me see if I can do this correctly. There it is. Kim, you were first in chat today. You are the internet owner for the afternoon. The internet is all yours. Thank you very much. Why can't you buy? I would bring my own bun. Now, let me tell you one more thing about the barbecue here. If you don't know Eastern North Carolina barbecue, you're in for a surprise because we don't do it like they do in Texas. We don't do it like they do in Kansas City. We don't do it like those heathens do it down in South Carolina with mustard, because that's just really wrong. No, we cook the pig. Cook the whole pig, and then we just start dumping vinegar on. And then we eat it. Yes, vinegar. It blew me away the first time I heard it. I thought it was a joke. I thought somebody had done it as a prank. Vinegar-based barbecue. It's a thing, and oh my goodness, I'm a believer. Okay, what was the buffer sound? You need to demand change. You should write a strongly worded opinion letter with Rob's pen. I should. I don't ask for much. I just want some. I will buy it. I will pay. You've got these people that drove. Clearly, there's gas money involved. Not everyone's the winner. Not everybody takes home I forget what the prize is, like $2,500, something like that, and the trophy, the pig trophy. Not everyone gets that. I'm sure they would love to be able to recoup some of their fuel costs for driving halfway across the country to cook dinner for somebody who wasn't able to eat it. Let's see. Was the sound at your end? The little buffer sound? Yes, it was. We have sound cranked up here in the courtroom. Nothing is happening yet, so we're going to take a peek. Let's see. Where's super source? Box source 2 is going to be. Let's bring 3 in right here. This is where we're at. All right. Anyway, for lunch, I had some barbecue. I had some pulled pork, but it was just pork, nothing else. And you Texans would be proud. I put some, I guess Kansas City would be proud. I put some KC Masterpiece barbecue sauce on the pulled pork. Put that on a little tortilla. Threw it in the microwave and nuked it. And then ate it. It's barbecue taco is what I had. All right. Recap on thumbnail, please. If we've got time, just 1 second. Let me see. I've got to get this out of the way. There it is. Okay, 7. We've added just a tiny bit, Just a Girl Bacon. We've added just a tiny bit to the thumbnail. Let's get that out of the way. You can see here the latest addition right here next to the Bonanza time. We have added a tax shelter. You can see it because it says tax on the side, and it is, in fact, a shelter. It's up there by the outhouse. Probably visited often and for the same reason. They're both full of it. Let's see, I fixed the Red Bull. We got the Red Bull back. We've done the layering right. We still have the Armor Edition up here on top because, there we go. We're going to straighten that out for the next one. Let's see what else. We've got the running Pickle because Miss Pickle was in charge of running the show. She's there. We've got the chain of custody is present. A little Starbucks representation here. We've got a little bag of snow there. Yeah, it makes me cry too. Brings a tear to the eye. That snow. A TV camera or a movie camera. We've got the Butte pocket right there, which is a pocket full of shells. I've got the dummy in the back of the trailer, some silver in there as well. A hatched green chili right there. Let's see. You should put. This is great advice. This is why I come here, you guys. You should put Miss Pickle running away from the set. Okay, let's do that really quickly. Next image will be fixed because we're going to do a quick horizontal flip. And yay, run away. Okay, Miss Pickle is fleeing. What is the kitty holding? Great question. That's also a new addition. The kitty is holding a pointer stick and pointing at the beefy gorilla. There's our pointer stick. And arrest Martin and everything else. So we're coming along nicely on the thumbnail. I'm actually quite pleased with this one. I appreciate all the advice, and I realize I've received a lot of emails. I've received texts with suggestions, additions, various versions of items that can be there. And you guys are doing great work. You really are. Unfortunately, I can't use everything, and sometimes I'm at the point where there are so many layers and objects here that every time I try to create something, I accidentally almost delete 6 other things. So I'm okay with the new pocket, Britt Bottoms. I hear that. Just understand whatever the pocket is, it probably needs a little bit thicker lines, and it has to be probably white because it needs to be on one of these orange buttes because it's a butt pocket. It's a butte pocket. Let's see. We're not. I don't think we're doing the fanny pack, unless we could put it on the Pickle. And I might need somebody who has Canva who can pull that Pickle up and maybe do some artwork to put the fanny pack on the Pickle or the bum bag, as you Brits would say, on the Pickle. It's beyond my skill. Yeah, Cachette says, use the features designed in the program to prevent you from deleting it. I'm really good. I'm really good with audio. I'm really good with video. I am not the art guy. Okay, I took some Photoshop classes, but no, we did not. I'm not there. Okay, we're gonna go back to court because it's beginning right now. Fanny pack on Pickle. Can we make that into a t-shirt? We are going to make it. I think once I have some free time, we are going to make some of our thumbnails from some previous cases into a downloadable, as cheap as can possibly be, downloadable item, so that you guys can collect either stickers, magnets, or a digital representation of the trials that you've attended. And you'd be surprised how many there are. There are quite a few. All right. Let's see, where are we?
Testing.
It's working. We hear you, Judge.
Next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. The state calls Nathan Quinlan.
All right.
Nathan who? Is this another producer? This guy, I'm sorry, this guy screams producer. He has the look.
Okay, you're going to stand before the judge and you're going to raise your hand.
Do you swear affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you'll give in this case will be
L,
the truth,
right,
the
this
whole
one.
truth, and nothing but the truth?
It's this one.
All right, thank you. Have a seat. Talk into the microphone.
I kid you not. He put both hands out. Which one makes the L? Oh, the one on that side. This is my
Good
right.
afternoon. Would you please state your name for the record and spell your last name, please?
Nathan Klinger, Klinger.
Thank you. Mr. Klinger, were you involved in the Rust movie?
Yes,
And in what capacity?
I was one of the producers.
All
Called
right.
it. Called
and
it.
as a producer, what were your job responsibilities particularly?
He's wearing the
My
uniform.
primary job responsibility was helping to close and raise all the financing and then confirming that the movie got finished.
Okay, so even though you were involved mainly in financing, were you on the set every day or almost every day?
Yeah, I would say almost every day or for some capacity of time.
Okay, thank you. The main reason we've asked you here today is because the defendant, Ms. Gutierrez, testified at an OSHA hearing that she had spoke to two producers, one named Ryan and one named Nathan, that she had asked you all for additional training time with Mr. Baldwin. Do you recall any conversation like that with the defendant?
I don't recollect that conversation, and I feel confident I would.
Okay, so
That was the next question.
if she had approached you with this conversation, you believe that's something you would remember,
Yeah,
correct?
I believe that, yeah.
All right. Did you have very many conversations with the defendant on the set? Or at all?
No, very few. I don't recollect many conversations at all.
Great. That's it. Pass the witness.
Yeah, you think that's it. You think you're done, sir, but you're not, because defense has other plans. Let's see what happens here.
Mr. Klinger, I believe I heard you say that your primary role as producer was financing, right?
Correct.
Does financing involve gathering investors to contribute money for the funding of the film?
Yes.
Okay, and so in order to be an investor for the funding of the film, do you have to be accredited, like have a certain net worth?
It's the same
No.
list of questions.
Can anyone be an investor for the film?
Yeah, if you invest.
Okay. Is there a threshold amount that you would require, in other words, to be an investor of the film?
No.
So I can invest in a film for
$2.
$100?
Yes, but
Big spender.
yes, you could, theoretically.
But what?
That would be a lot of legal work for a very small investment.
Okay. So is it fair to say you're looking for big investments, right?
I would say so.
And do you know, do you have any knowledge of Rust's, if any of the Rust's costs were returned, or the amount, how much of Rust's costs were actually returned by New Mexico tax credits for filming here?
Not directly, I don't believe.
Are you aware of any of Rust's costs being returned by New Mexico's tax credits?
What do you mean by returned?
I guess I mean by
Recouped.
being able to claim costs as a tax credit.
Yeah, a percent of the budget would be a tax credit.
Do you know what percent of the budget is a tax credit?
Look at his eyes.
Not directly. My assumption is somewhere between 20 and 25%.
His eyes are shifting back and forth between the prosecution table, where she's looking for help because he's like, why am I talking
right.
about this? And the defense.
Who would be responsible for determining the actual budget? And what I'm looking for is basically what was in each envelope for various things to film. Do you understand?
Yeah, the line producer, I would believe.
And who's the line producer?
Gabrielle Pickle.
All right. Does the line producer also collaborate with the production team on budget issues?
Yes.
So as a producer, do you have any oversight over the budget?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what funds were set aside for the armor in the budget?
No.
As a producer, do you consider yourself responsible for ensuring there were sufficient funds available for, let's say, below the line workers to have a safe production?
I didn't build the budget, so I wouldn't have knowledge of directly what was allocated to what.
Okay, so you don't consider yourself responsible for that part?
No.
Not my
Do
job.
you recall any safety issues on set?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I recall when Lane Looper quit, he flagged some safety issues.
Okay, and Lane Looper actually sent an email, did he not?
Yes.
And was that email a day before the shooting death of Miss Hutchins?
Yes.
And as the producer, did you do anything in response to that?
I confirmed the necessary day-to-day production staff who oversaw the set were on that email, and yeah, I made sure that they were aware of it, yeah.
Okay, and when you say the necessary production staff, who are you referring to?
Gabrielle Pickle and Roe Walters.
Okay. Did you do anything to allot more armor days to the budget?
No.
Were you aware of an accidental discharge that occurred on set?
I don't believe so.
And were you there on location on the day of the shooting?
Not directly on location, no, at base camp.
Okay, is base camp actually there on the location of the...
It's on the ranch, but it was quite a ways from the actual location.
All right. Were you aware if on that day there was an attorney representing the production company there on set?
Not directly, because to my knowledge, she wasn't representing the production company.
Okay, so you are aware of an attorney there, right?
Yes.
Do you know who she was representing?
No.
I love the side
After
eyes.
you became aware of the shooting, did you actually head up to the church?
Yes.
And did you do anything when you went up there?
I remember I helped carry some pews so the ambulance could drive in.
Okay, did you help carry those pews out of the church where the shooting had occurred?
No, they were already outside of the church. I just helped move them out of the way of the sort of entrance to the church.
Okay. And the producers, how many producers were there actually?
I believe there were six. There were six.
Do you know, are there two producers by the name of Ryan?
Yes.
Okay. What are their last names?
One was Ryan Smith and one was Ryan Winterstern.
Okay. Now, you said that you were there, I believe, on the day of the shooting. You've told us your role. Are you?
No.
Just a minute, Your Honor. No further questions. Thank you. Redirect.
Just one very quick question. Are you the only producer with the first name Nathan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Your excuse.
State calls John Ziello.
They went easy on him. They went easy on him. So we're trying to fix, we're having some audio cutouts, dropouts. I'm trying to bring in all the sources I can to make sure we can fix all those errors. That was a nothing burger, but he did admit we got the 25% tax rebate out of him. That was good. That was good. We didn't get that out of the first one. Tax shelter is 25%.
Do you swear affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you'll give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
Thank you. Have a seat. Talk into the microphone, please.
The waters are
Sir, go ahead and state your name for the
piling
record.
up.
John Ziello.
Mr. Ziello, what do you do for a living?
I am a grip in the film industry.
Explain to the jury what a grip is.
Grips do the non-electrical lighting as well as camera rigging, any overhead rigging, mounting cameras on cars, All the fun stuff. We're like the MacGyvers on
Does he
set.
look like?
Excellent.
Does he look like an animal?
And Mr. Ziello, how many different film sets in your career do you think you have worked on?
100.
You can include TV and
Yeah,
things.
hundreds. I work in commercials and television, so quite a lot.
And were you employed as a grip on the set of the movie Rust?
I was the key rigging grip.
And what's a key rigging grip? Is it any different than what you previously described?
Usually you would have a department, it's separate from the actual grips. There's a key grip, and then the key rigging grip is a parallel to him. So you have your own department separate from his, but you carry out orders basically from the DP together. So.
And the DP being the director of photography?
Yeah.
And was that Ms. Hutchins?
Helena in this case, yes.
During your career, how long have you worked in the film industry?
15 years.
And during the 15 years that you've worked in the film industry, if you can estimate for the jury, how many times do you think you've worked on movie sets or TV with armorers?
Somewhere neighborhood of 30 to 50 maybe.
Okay, a fair number of times.
Yeah.
Were there issues with regard to guns and gun safety on the set of Rust that stood out to you?
Yes.
Can you describe those for the jury?
Everyone's going to approach. Come on down. Let's see. Thank you, Kristen, by the way. We're going to pin this really quickly. Replace pin message. Not sure on the spelling on this one. Hopefully this is right. John Ziello. He's a key grip. He is willing to spill all about safety issues. He's not so high up in the management that he pretends nothing happened or didn't hear anything. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. There will be some objections here. Let's let those fly. Yep, we just had an approved one. Thank you, Thomas, for that. They're just sorting out the final details about what they can go over. I do miss hearing at least what the objection was. Relevance, leading. I don't know. We'll take this opportunity, though, to remind you that tonight at 8 p.m., on this channel, Thomas Weatherwatch, who's a kind moderator who just made this very informative bit of information available to you on the pinned message. The two of us will be doing a podcast tonight on this channel. It's a lot of fun. If you like this sort of environment and the vibe that we have here on fun days, the podcast is going to be just down your alley. So, little programming note, Abby. Something the boss makes me read during the dead times. Little promo. I miss speaking objections. Angelique, we complain about them, and then they took them away, and now we're complaining that they took them away. It's a sad deal. Can I be a producer of the Not Relevant podcast? It does require investment, Greeners, a significant investment. We're not going to do all this paperwork for just $100, okay? I mean, lawyers are involved. Yeah, that's never cheap. But yes, actively seeking very wealthy and investors who are careless with money. That's the whole theme of the Not Relevant podcast. Have any of the camera crew that walked off been witnesses? I don't think we've heard from them yet. I'm not sure if we will. We heard from the behind-the-scenes camera guy, but I don't think we've heard from the ones that walked off the set. Future. I want to. Maybe Toyo Toys will. What's going on in Kansas City? Hang on. Officer involved shooting in Kansas City. Okay. The news never stops. But I hope Phil puts that together. Puts the guy put hands up. Which one has the L?
Mr. Ziello, when you were working on the set of Rust, did you personally see issues with firearm safety that concerned you?
Yes, I did.
Will you explain to the jury what's coming to mind as I'm asking you that question?
On 2 separate instances, I came across the cart where they moved the guns around. The armorist would bring them to set and set their cart up, and on 2 separate instances, I came across that cart basically unmanned with nobody around it, and looking around.
Let me stop you there.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything on the cart that caused you to be concerned about the fact that it was unmanned?
Yes, there were firearms and ammunition on top of the cart.
And why did it concern you that it was unmanned?
It's just not something you see normally on a set. It felt wrong, and it looked, anybody could have done anything they wanted to those weapons, and nobody would have known.
In your experience working on movie sets with armorers, is that something that you usually see?
No, there's usually a chain of custody. Gun goes from armorist to actor, back to armorist, back to storage.
Can you recall ever seeing guns and ammunition laying out unattended on a movie set?
No.
Was there anything else with regard to firearms safety that you witnessed that caused you concern?
One instance, we had a large scene in the cowboy town, like in the main part of the western town, and there were a lot of guns involved in the scene. We had finished the majority, like the big wide part, and I ended up standing next to an actor who still had his pistol in his holster, was not in the current scene because we had moved on to another scene, and he was playing with it, messing around, and I just jokingly was like, "Hey, don't shoot me," with that, like, quit messing with that thing. And I was standing right next to him, and it's not something you normally see.
So was Ms. Gutierrez supervising that actor when he was playing around with his gun?
No, he was standing by, either waiting to go in again, possibly, or hanging out after he had just finished. I'm not sure.
In your experience working on film sets with armorers, are the actors generally permitted to walk around with their real prop guns and manipulate them?
Again, there's usually like a strict chain of custody, they call it, and it's armorist, gun back to armorist, back to storage. You don't usually see them left with the actors.
In your career, have you ever seen that you can recall?
I don't think so.
Okay. And sir, were you present on set on October 21st, 2021?
Yes.
I want to start, why don't we start at lunch, okay? Did you have lunch with the crew that day?
I did.
And how did you get back? And just to be clear, how far away is the lunch area from the town and the church?
About a quarter mile. It's walkable, but there's vans and you get rides typically. And I had my personal vehicle on set, my truck, and I would use it to go back and forth.
Okay. And on that day, did you drive yourself to the lunch area?
Yep.
And did you drive yourself back?
I did, but I also picked up Helena and drove her back with me on that day.
And where did you drop Ms. Hutchins off anywhere?
Yeah, right at the church. I dropped her off in front of the church.
And just to be clear, were you in the church at the time of the incident?
I was not.
Let me ask you this, were you close enough that you heard the incident?
I was about 100 yards away. I heard everything. Well, I heard the gunshot go off.
Do you have experience with real firearms?
Some.
When you heard that sound and you were, I think you said about 100 yards away,
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any idea what it was?
I honestly didn't know if it was part of the scene. I didn't know if they had started or not. I did not. It didn't raise any major concern to me until someone came out yelling, "Call 911."
And is that something that you heard on your radio, or did you see that with your own eyes?
I saw that with my own eyes. I heard them yelling.
To call 911?
Yeah.
And what did you do when you realized that there was some type of an emergency?
I immediately ran into the church.
And what did you do when you got inside the church?
I saw Helena laying on the floor being worked on by the medic, and Joel was to the left, and our dolly grip Ross was attending to him. And at that time, all the pews were still really tight up on them, so I immediately started chucking pews out of the way, and I moved the dolly, and I cleared room for them to work on Helena.
And did you stay in the church while they were performing life-saving measures on Miss Hutchins?
Yeah, I did. I was, excuse me, I was directly involved in first aid with her for a number of minutes before the paramedics had arrived on the scene.
And when you say that you were directly involved in first aid with her, do you have any first aid training?
No, I was just assisting. The medic was having trouble keeping the oxygen mask on Helena's face. She was flailing and tearing it off, and myself, the gaffer, Serge, and our Steadicam operator, Reed, were all around helping stabilize her. I had her head and neck, Serge had her arms, and Reed had her ankles, I believe.
Was it apparent to you that she had suffered some type of a serious injury?
Yeah.
And why was that apparent to you?
She was bleeding and in pain, and I saw the wound and realized it was life-threatening in the area there was. And
when you say you saw the wound, where was that?
Entry was under her right armpit, I believe, and exit was just inside of her shoulder blades, I think.
And did you see both of those, the entry and the exit?
Yeah.
Okay. And then at some point, were you relieved by paramedics?
Yes, the paramedics showed up and we all fell back and let them take over.
If you recall, when you were in the church attempting to render aid, did you see Ms. Gutierrez or hear Ms. Gutierrez?
No, they cleared the church pretty quickly. I pushed past whoever was maintaining the door at that moment and went in, but they were trying to keep everybody out of there.
Okay. And at some point then, did you leave the church?
Yes.
And when you left the church, where did you go?
I left the church because they were calling a helicopter and a lifeline or whatever you call it, and they needed a landing zone cleared, and I immediately jumped on Channel 3 with the Teamsters and called for the water truck to come over and clear out a landing zone, and I started trying to get vehicles out of the way. I actually hopped in a police vehicle, tried to move it, and quickly had an officer come up and say he would do it.
I'm sure.
He's just helping out.
Did you take note of anything when you were outside the church? Did anything catch your eye?
I believe after that, the helicopter thing, I came back and saw Dave Halls and Hannah having a conversation. Dave Halls was asking Hannah to see the pistol and wanted to clear the gun and look at it and see what was in it. And I believe he retrieved it. I think in my initial interview I said she had grabbed it, but in my notes that I took afterwards, I believe he was the one who actually pulled the pistol out of the church and brought it outside.
And were they standing around or over a cart?
Yeah, there was a black Rubbermaid cart just to the left side of the door. If you're looking at the front of the church, just to the left, it was tucked in. It was already, it's kind of, for shooting, we always tuck things in tight around the door, and it was already there, and they were standing in front of it.
And what were they doing?
They were removing the bullets from the gun and attempting to check them and see which were dummies and which weren't, or what happened.
And Did you have any concerns about that?
I did. It immediately felt wrong to me, and I thought to preserve it, I pulled my cell phone out and actually held it up, tried to record that happening. And I was just so flustered that I actually didn't push record, so I didn't get any footage actually, but I stood there holding my phone as though I were the entire time.
So you were attempting to video record them taking the rounds out of the gun?
Yeah.
Did you happen to see what happened to those rounds?
Yeah, they took them out one by one, shook them, checked them, and I believe they ended up on the Rubbermaid cart as they were going through them.
Okay. And was this a rather stressful event for you?
Yeah.
Were you interviewed by the police in a trailer on October 21st?
Yes.
And have you had a chance to review the statement that you gave?
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors what your thoughts are about the accuracy of your statement?
Honestly, it was pretty inaccurate. I had just found out Helena died 5 minutes before that, and I was very emotional, and after watching it, several times I misspoke in that.
And why do you think that you misspoke and had some errors in your statement?
I don't know. I think I was just flustered, and I think I said there were 5 bullets when there were 6. It wasn't anything big, but it was just simple, errors.
Do you recall in that interview describing the armorer as a blonde person?
I believe I was talking about her assistant, or who I thought was her assistant. Okay. But no, it wasn't. I wasn't trying to describe Hannah.
Okay. You understood that Ms. Gutierrez was the armorer?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I'll pass the witness.
Cross-exam.
So what prosecution did there was try to take the wind out of the sails for defense, because they prefaced the mistakes he made, which they now are going to try to highlight.
Do you recall when you gave that statement mentioning that the blonde hair's assistant had brought the firearm into the church?
Right.
And the blonde hair assistant on the movie was Sarah Zachary. Were you aware of that?
Yes.
Okay. So at the time, at least, when you gave that statement, you indicated that it was Sarah Zachary who had brought the firearm in the church.
I believe I did, yeah.
Okay. Now, you stated today that you gave that interview shortly after this had happened, and it was traumatic. Is that obviously?
Yeah.
So you made several misstatements?
Yeah, I believe someone told me that she handed it off when we were after the incident. I don't know why I purported that.
Okay. Well, and right after that, it wouldn't be unusual for you to make a mistake and something like that. Was it hard for you to even think and concentrate?
Yeah, definitely. I was still crying in there.
And when they interviewed you, were you still on the set? Were you still there?
Yeah, they made us wait around to be interviewed. Anybody who was directly involved.
Okay. You also talked about the cart on direct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you need a...
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
You also talked about the cart, and you indicated that when they came out to load, it was the Rubbermaid cart.
Yeah.
And do you recall also that you thought it was the special effects cart?
Yeah, the special effects guys had a lot of gear in and around that area for the scene that was happening. They had a bunch of poppers set up in the church, and I believe their firing station was in that area, so that's why I indicated that.
Okay, that's one of the things you said, though, that they had loaded it by the special effects card.
Yeah,
Okay, so-
it may have been. I honestly don't even know if that was a special effects cart or if it was the armorer's cart. Now, I can't tell you.
Okay, so as we sit here today, I mean, is it fair to say, because of the trauma of those events, that maybe your memory's affected some, which wouldn't be unusual?
I took contemporaneous notes in the days after and have a pretty good recollection of what happened in that time frame.
Okay. I want to ask you about the incident you were talking about with the cart and the firearms left out on it.
Sure.
Are you certain those firearms were not replicas?
I have no idea. They could have been.
Okay. And when you walked by that cart, do you know what time of day it was?
It was late morning.
Early morning?
Late morning.
Late morning?
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what day that was?
No, I couldn't give you a date today. We had just shot one of the bigger gun scenes where we had, I believe it was the most guns in any scene that we had at that time.
And because of how many guns were involved, did you see the armor and her, or Sarah Zachary, her boss, did you see them attending to those firearms?
During that scene, yes.
Okay. So when you saw the cart, was the scene completed?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see them still dealing with the firearms?
No. Okay. We had moved on into another building, I believe, around the corner, and that cart was left behind.
Okay, in any event, you didn't know whether they were replicas or not. Did you report that to anybody?
No, I did not.
Okay. And the other instance, I think you were talking about kind of joking with somebody that had his firearm still. Did you report that to anybody?
No, I did not.
Okay. Your Honor, I don't have any further questions.
Just a couple quick follow-ups.
Okay, redirect.
Your Honor, may I have just one moment? I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that.
All right, as they get everything set up here, one more
Did you
question.
know on that, when you walked outside and saw that cart, did you know whether the prop cart was over by the black tent?
When are you referring to?
Yeah, I'm sorry. When you came out and saw them unloading the firearm, was the prop cart, do you recall it being near the black tent or not?
I don't believe it. Was there a black tent there? I think there was a black tent on the right side of the building, and the cart was on the left side, if I recall.
Okay. The cart that you remember seeing?
Yeah, the cart that was just outside the door to the left.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Redirect.
And just to be clear, Mr. Ziello, did you see who brought the firearm into the church after lunch that day?
No.
The day that you saw the firearms unattended on the cart, you indicated that there was a big gun scene that had just happened?
Mm-hmm.
And just, if you don't mind saying yes for the
yes,
record.
sorry,
okay.
excuse me.
And in that scene that was taking place that day, if you recall, did it involve the firing of blanks?
It did.
Do fake guns fire blanks?
Not to my knowledge.
And the gun that was on the actor, was there anything about it that caused you to think it was a fake gun?
No, that was a real gun.
It was a real gun?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. I don't have anything else. Appreciate you.
All right, you're excused.
All right.
Your Honor.
The defense wisely.
David Halls.
Oh, David Halls. Mr. Halls is coming in. They're going to pass each other in the hall. Yes. Deputy George gets rid of the trash. Here comes Mr. Halls. See if we can get a shot of him here.
stand before the judge, raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you'll give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, have a seat, talk into the microphone. Thank you. Would you like some water, sir?
I would, please.
Okay, thank you.
George is like, I'm on it. I'm on it. Water coming right up. Let me fix the image here a little bit. There we go.
State your full name for the record, please.
David John Halls.
Mr. Halls, what do you do for a living?
I am retired. I was a first assistant director on motion pictures and television.
Pinned to their own.
How long were you a first assistant director?
Since the mid-90s, I think we could probably use, for motion pictures, 94, since 1994.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you to move that microphone a little closer to you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And in October of 2021, were you employed on the set of the movie Rust?
I was.
And were you employed in that capacity as a first assistant director?
I was.
Can you explain to the jurors what a first assistant director does?
A first assistant director is responsible for creating the schedule. First assistant director will do that in collaboration with the director and producers. That's a process of taking the script and breaking it down, and what actors are going to be needed in which scenes, what props are going to be needed, what pieces of wardrobe are going to be needed, what special effects will be needed. And that is all broken down into a software program that's pretty universal in the industry. And that generates documents that can be distributed to the different departments, the different department heads. And my department, the assistant director's department is kind of a contact point for the cast. So it's really a position of disseminating information. This is all during the pre-production process. And then once production shooting begins, the first assistant director would be, an analogy would be you're the shop foreman or the site foreman. You're overseeing and making sure that the production is following the schedule, that things are moving efficiently, and that people are given, the cast crew are given the information that they need to know.
And sir, as the first assistant director on the set of Rust, were you what's called a safety coordinator?
Yes, that is part of my title, yes.
And what do you do as a safety coordinator?
It's to make sure that the different departments and cast are following the safety protocols, that there are written safety protocols that are produced in an alliance between the different unions and guilds in the industry, Screen Actors Guild, the unions that represent the technicians, and it's just to observe to make sure that mitigating any safety risks.
Did you feel personally, up until October 21st, that Rust was a relatively safe set?
I did.
Did you yourself have any concerns about Ms. Gutierrez's behavior as an armorer?
I did not.
And is part of your role as the first assistant director to be a part of the safety check of firearms that's taking place on set?
Yes.
Can you just describe for the jury generally the way that should work?
Yeah.
We
I
fixed
was going to say
the
typically, but
message.
usually,
Corrected it.
all the time, whenever there's a firearm on set. I do not work with a lot of first assistant directors, but I am assured that this is a protocol that all assistant directors follow. That whenever a firearm is on set, I make an announcement. In the case of Rust, I had a wireless microphone that was connected to a public address, a speaker system, so everybody could hear. And all the time, whenever there was a firearm on set, I would make an announcement there was a firearm or firearms on set. I'm inspecting them with the armorer. If anybody else would like to inspect the gun, now would be the time. And you're certainly welcome to do that. I would also, if there was ever an incident where the firearm had to be fired, a blank, I would make that announcement. There will be live fire in this shot. Ear and eye protection are provided. Please protect your ears.
On the set of Rust, can you tell the jury what the safety checks with Ms. Gutierrez consisted of?
It's really what I just said, that whenever...
and let me stop you and ask a more pointed question. I guess what I'm interested in is, did Ms. Gutierrez load the gun in front of you on any occasion? Just kind of walk us through your experiences with blanks, with dummies, with Ms. Gutierrez. And let's, for the purposes of these questions, let's assume that there's going to be blank firing, okay?
Yes.
We assume there's going to be blank firing. Prior to handing the gun to an actor, is there a safety check that is done with you and Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes. She showed me that there's an empty gun at that moment before she would load the blank round. She would also show me the barrel of the gun to make sure that there's no obstructions in the barrel.
So let me ask you, when she would show you the barrel, were you able to see all the way down the barrel?
On the revolvers, yes, I certainly was. I recall there might have been a rifle that I might not have been able to get a clear to see light at the end of the barrel.
Okay, so she loads the gun with the blanks in front of you. Is that right?
Yes.
And then what happens then?
And then she would give it to the actor.
And was it, in your mind, permissible for her to then walk away and go do something else?
During the moments of live fire?
Sure.
No, not acceptable for her to walk away.
Okay. Let's talk about instances where a gun would be loaded with dummies.
Yes.
When you would do the safety check with Ms. Gutierrez, would she load the dummies in front of you and shake them so that you could hear that they were dummies?
There were only 2 occasions where dummy rounds were used.
Let me stop you right there. When you say there were only 2 occasions that dummy rounds were used, how do you know that dummies were in the guns on those 2 occasions? Is it because Ms. Gutierrez approached you and told you?
She did.
Okay. Would you know if there were times that she would dummy up the guns and not bring them to you and not tell you?
No, the normal, every day, every moment that there was a firearm that was being handed to an actor, she would always bring the gun to the firearm to me, and we would do an inspection of the firearm.
And you only recall 2 instances where firearms were dummied.
Yes.
And was one of them on October 21st?
Yes.
And the other one, did that involve a revolver or a long gun?
A long gun.
Okay. So let's talk about October 21st. I'm gonna start with you after the lunch hour. What was happening after lunch? What were we doing there?
We were preparing a shot for Mr. Baldwin's character. He was sitting in a pew. He's been on the run. He's taking refuge in this old church, and he's sitting in the pew. And what we were photographing. I'm sorry. I'm trying to avoid the word shot. We were preparing for the shot of Mr. Baldwin sitting in the pew. It was basically from his waist to the top of his head, and his action was just to pull out the revolver. And in the story, he's pointing the revolver at 2 U.S. Marshals that have come into the church.
Okay. That was what you were intending to do?
That's what we were preparing to, yes, lighting, yes.
And this has been referred to as blocking the shot. Is that your recollection?
You could refer to that. You could say that, yes. Can I just, there's been a lot of talk about rehearsal, and I just like to clarify, if that's okay with you.
Let's finish this line of questioning first, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, was this a rehearsal, or was it just setting up the shot?
Immediately after lunch, we were setting up the shot. Mr. Baldwin was not called to set.
And is that common that was Mr. Baldwin considered first team?
That is what we refer to in the motion picture industry. That is what we refer to the cast as first team.
Okay. So when the shot's being set up, is first team usually there?
No.
Okay. They don't come in until it's ready to shoot.
Yes, I mean there are occasions that we might have shot a shot with cast, and now we're going to do it at a different angle and do lighting, and they might stay there.
Okay.
It just depends on the amount of time that would be needed to prepare the shot. But Mr. Baldwin was not present at that time.
So on October 21st after lunch, they're setting up the shot. Do you recall who was in the church?
I do.
Go ahead and tell us who you recall being there.
Miss Hutchins, Joel Souza, Serge Svetnoy, Ross.
Did you say Serge Svetnoy?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Ross Adiego, Reese Price, Thomas Gandy, Roman Gandy. This is during preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is pre Mr. Baldwin arriving on set. I believe the microphone boom operator Zach Sneeby might have been in the room in the church at that time.
Was Ms. Mitchell in the church at that time or not yet?
I don't recall seeing her there at that time.
Okay.
You know what? Mr. Souza would not have been. I don't think he was in the church during the preparation time.
So, at what point in time do you have contact with Ms. Gutierrez?
When Mr. Baldwin was called to set, when he arrived on the set.
Who called Mr. Baldwin to set?
I did.
Did you, at the same time, make any request for the armor or armor services?
I did not.
Did you ask for the gun?
I did not ask for the gun.
And why wouldn't you have asked for the gun?
Because it's normal procedure on certainly all of the productions that I've worked on with firearms. And it's not just for firearms, it's for props and wardrobe, that when first team is called to set, it's announced over a walkie-talkie. The first assistant director would go onto the walkie-talkie and say, "Camera is ready, first team, please." This alerts all the different departments. Certainly costumes, because they're going to need to do whatever, put a piece of costume on the actor, make adjustments. Hair and makeup, they're gonna need to do their touches. Props, they're gonna need to give the prop that's needed to the actor. And this is also a signal, a cue to the armor that the actor that needs the firearm is going to be on set, and I should be there. The armor, the armor, I should be there to give the gun to the actor.
Okay, so you didn't actually call for the gun, but you agree that Ms. Gutierrez may have understood that it would be time for her to come into the church?
Yes.
Okay.
She's like, "Can we just go on without taking this to the judge to have the ref call me out for leading?" She's like, "Yeah, I know it was leading. Can we just go on? I was just restating." She's like, "That's what I said. It was just restating." Judge is like, "Yeah, it was just restating. So we're good. I won't lead anymore." She was like, I'll just rule on the objection. You don't need to talk to the judge.
There's a question, but please, we're going to disregard the question asked. All right, thank you.
And my apologies. Just to be clear, you don't know what Ms. Gutierrez thought or why she did what she did in that moment, correct? You don't know that Ms. Gutierrez thought to herself, "I better come into the church." You're making that assumption, correct?
I'm making that assumption.
Okay. But to be clear, you did not call for the gun.
No.
Okay. Does Ms. Gutierrez appear in the church?
Yes, very shortly after Mr. Baldwin appeared on set.
Okay, go ahead and kind of walk us through this. Tell us about when Mr. Baldwin appears in the church and then Ms. Gutierrez, and walk us through what happens.
Mr. Baldwin entered the church. He took his position where he was needed in the pew of the church. I'm standing in front of Mr. Baldwin, facing Mr. Baldwin. It was no more than 5 feet from him. I was a body width to what would be his left. And Ms. Gutierrez appeared on my left-hand side with the revolver, and she said, let's do the gun check. She opened up the latch to show the drum of the revolver. She rotated the cylinder. It was empty. Checked the barrel. It was what is referred to as a cold gun. And Ms. Gutierrez just took a few steps and gave the gun to Mr. Baldwin.
It
Now,
was empty?
it's your recollection at that point in time that the gun was empty, it did not have dummies in it?
It absolutely was empty.
Okay. And you looked at it, correct?
I looked at it, yes.
Now, let me stop for a moment. Were there any opportunity, at any point in time during that day, did you sit in for Mr. Baldwin?
I did.
When was that?
After lunch.
Okay. And when you sat in for Mr. Baldwin, was the firearm in the church?
No.
Okay. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? Why are you sitting in for him? Explain to the jury how that happens.
Well, Usually there is a stand-in for the actor, a person, and most times it's a person that matches the height and hair color, look of the actor.
He says, I look like Mr. Baldwin.
There was a stand-in for Mr. Baldwin, and when I entered the church after lunch, the stand-in for Mr. Baldwin was there. And because of COVID, I wanted to keep the amount of people in the church to and I typically do that anyway, outside of the pandemic, before the pandemic, just in smaller spaces, I would try to keep. What I usually say is, if you don't have to be there, please don't. So, because of COVID and just generally, I'd like to keep only the people that are needed for the shot there. I said, his name was Bill. I said, Bill, it's okay. I can sit in for Alec, and it was a good opportunity. Just as if I'm sitting in the pew right now, I can observe everything, the crew preparing, and that's what I did.
Did you need to have a firearm at that point in time?
I did not, no.
Did you have a firearm at that point in time?
No, I did not.
Were you using anything to mimic a firearm?
I recall holding up my hand like this as a finger.
Just so that they could set up the shot?
Yeah.
Okay. So after the setting up of the shot, after you sitting in for Mr. Baldwin, just to be clear, it's your recollection that Mr. Baldwin came in and Ms. Gutierrez came in around the same time?
Yes.
Okay. She does the gun check with you. You see an empty gun. To your recollection, Ms. Gutierrez hands the gun to Mr. Baldwin. Is that right?
That's correct.
What happens after that? How do we end up with a gun that is no longer empty?
I did not see the gun taken away from Mr. Baldwin. I'm still in the same position, facing him, body width to his left, no more than 5 feet in front of him. You know, as an assistant director, you're looking around, you're observing, you're communicating with people. I did not see Ms. Guttierrez take the gun from Mr. Baldwin, but she appeared back on my left-hand side, and she said that she had put dummy rounds into the revolver.
And at that point in time, was another safety check done?
She opened up the latch to the revolver. I recall seeing 3 to 4 what I believe to be dummy rounds. I had seen the dummy rounds before.
And when you say you saw them before, are you talking about that day or?
Before that day.
Okay, and let me ask you, under what circumstances would you have seen the dummy rounds if the only other time that guns were dummied up was a rifle?
Yes, and I believe on that day, I did see those dummy rounds on her cart.
Okay, so you were familiar with what they looked like?
They had a very distinctive, bright brass end to it, what would be the end of the bottom of the shell casing, and all the primers were depressed, meaning that this has already been a bullet that has been fired. And,
but sir, let me ask you, you indicated that you only saw 3 or 4, you didn't see 6.
I don't recall her fully rotating the cylinder.
Okay. You don't recall her fully rotating it?
I do not.
Okay. And even though the cylinder wasn't fully rotated, did you let that safety check sort of pass?
I did.
Okay. And what's your recollection about what happened to the gun after that?
She took the few steps to Mr. Baldwin and gave Ms. Baldwin the gun.
Okay. And let me ask you, sir, were you criminally charged in this case?
I was.
And did you enter a no contest plea to negligent use of a firearm?
I did.
And why did you do that? When I say why, what in your mind caused you to be, what caused a plea to negligent use of a firearm to be appropriate? What did you do that would justify that?
I was negligent in checking the gun properly.
Okay, that's the reason that you took that plea, is that right?
That's correct.
So, to the best of your recollection, Ms. Gutierrez hands the gun to Mr. Baldwin. Walk us through what happens after that.
The revolver is placed. Mr. Baldwin had a holster. That the gun was basically at his chest, and his action was to take the gun out and point it at what had been the two U.S. Marshals, and he was pulling it out. I'm sure he was getting used to that action. He was in communication with Ms. Hutchins about where to point the gun.
Do you recall, sir, was Mr. Souza also in the room?
He was.
Was Mr. Souza also participating in how to set up this shot? Do you recall?
No, I just recall that it was communication between Mr. Baldwin and Helena.
Okay. And then what happened?
The gun went off.
When the gun went off, what did you think happened?
There's so many thoughts. Honestly, the idea that it was a live round of ammunition that went off was just it wasn't computing. It wasn't, and it was my thought was that a blank round had been loaded, and there had been another instance that an actor was killed from a blank round, and I just thought that there something in the blank round, a wadding. I had heard at one time that maybe they used pieces of wax to keep the black powder in the blank round, or was there an obstruction in the barrel? It just wasn't something I could compute in my mind.
Sir, after you heard the gun go off, tell us what you saw in terms of the reaction by Ms. Hutchins and Mr. Souza.
Ms. Hutchins is to my left, maybe 3 feet away. Yeah, it was my recollection that I might have been the first person to her. She was on the ground. Perhaps Ross Ego might have been there, which would have made sense because he was the dolly grip, and he would have been close as anybody to Helena.
Did you speak to Ms. Hutchins when you approached her?
I did.
What did you say?
Are you all right?
Did she respond?
Yes. She said, I can't feel my legs.
And when you're ready, just tell us what happened after that. Take a break if you need to.
I'm ready. I immediately left the church to make sure that 911 was being called. And the set medic appeared, and she was treating Ms. Hutchins, and I stayed out of the church just to keep space.
Do you know where the gun was in these moments after it went off? Was it, if you recall, was it left in the church? Was it taken out?
I had an assumption where the gun was. What was going through my mind trying to determine what had happened. Again, the idea of what was in the gun that would do this to two people. Still, no ability to compute that a live round of ammunition would have been in that gun. And I said, in an effort to triage the situation, I need to know what's in that gun. I went back into the church. I went to the pew. On the pew was the revolver. I grabbed the revolver. I left the church. I went to Miss Gutierrez's cart, which is on, if you're facing the church, it would be on the left-hand side of the church, right just immediately around the corner. I took it to her and I said, I need you to unload that gun. I need to know what it's in it.
And did she unload the gun in front of you?
She did.
And what was taken out of the gun?
I recall seeing 5 dummy rounds, again with the distinctive bright brass ends to them, and 1 shell casing that did not have a projectile on it, and it had a completely distinctive looking end to it.
When you say a distinctive looking end to it, what are you referring to?
I recall it as being gray, metallic gray. And I recall that it was just completely different looking. It's hard to explain. There was some kind of machining or something. Maybe it was raised. This is my recollection, but a more contemporary looking bullet than what I was seeing in the other rounds.
And let me ask you, sir, do you own guns?
I do not.
Do you shoot guns?
No, I do not.
At any point in time in the afternoon, after lunch, did you tell Ms. Gutierrez to leave the church?
Can you say that question
Did you
again?
tell Ms. Gutierrez to leave the church?
No.
Did you realize that she had left the church?
I did not.
Did you have an expectation that the armorer would stay with the gun?
That wasn't in my head at the time.
Well, but let me ask you, just in terms of your experience working on movie sets with guns and armorers, in your experience, does the armorer hand off a gun and then walk away and leave?
That's not my experience.
Okay. At some point, did you realize that Ms. Gutierrez had not stayed in the church?
I did not realize she had not stayed in the church.
After the gun went off, where was she the next time you saw her?
At her cart.
Okay. And you just didn't know whether she was in the church or not?
I did not know.
Okay. Sir, did you instruct Ms. Gutierrez or request that Ms. Gutierrez put dummies in the gun?
I did not.
Did you hear anyone ask her to put dummies in the gun?
I did not.
Now, we understand that you entered into a plea agreement. Were you placed on unsupervised probation?
Yes.
And has that time period ended?
Yes.
Approximately when did it end?
I think sometime in October.
Okay. Are you under any legal requirement other than responding to a subpoena to come in here and testify?
No.
Why have you agreed to testify in this trial?
It's important to me that the truth be known. That Helena's husband and son, her family, know the truth of what happened. It's important that the cast and the crew, producers of Rust, know what happened. And it's important that the industry, the motion picture and television industry, knows what happened so that this never happens again.
All right, thank you, sir. I'll pass the witness.
You know what? I think it's time for bathroom break. So please don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court. And we'll be back at about 2:35.
All rise.
All right. So emotional testimony from David Halls. That's tough to listen to. He knows, and he owned up to on the stand that he had a portion of blame, that there was something that he did that resulted in a death, loss of a life, and he pled no contest.
Call from.
Is it New Mexico?
Is it New Mexico? Hello, Matt. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm on vacation now.
Yes.
And I have court watching time, and I'm doing lots of stuff. But I hope you got some good sun from me yesterday.
It's much warmer. Thank you very much. I actually went out in shorts and a
very
t-shirt
good.
today. It was great.
I heard it does that. This is a really so I've now having now listened to this witness and all the other ones. I'm in a really complicated spot because I've done research on like what are New Mexico sentencing guidelines for like what would be negligent homicide, when would it be is it a petty or a general misdemeanor, what is the what does the New Mexico law review say on unintentional homicides? And there's a really interesting article on how you can get non-criminal but civil liability or to first-degree murder by felony murder, and all the various degrees, and why the jury instructions are often maybe bad at helping you distinguish between lesser included. But I think where I am now is that based on the evidence that I've seen, I don't think that so it's not like the Crumley case where I think it's just completely improper for the case for the state to look for involuntary manslaughter. I think they have evidence, but because you can get from basically, for me, the entire question is, can you get from negligence to recklessness? So you can get from negligent homicide to involuntary manslaughter, and you have evidence for recklessness because she is an armorer. She did receive some training, but maybe she's just incompetent and she sucks. And I'm thinking I would probably not get to recklessness there, but I've thought about, well, isn't it kind of reckless to take the job and then not try to improve so you actually get good? And I thought about if we look at her conduct, like what kind of sentence should that be? And I think maybe I would want her to be convicted of a lesser crime that would then, and I would maybe want a higher sentence than what the court will give her even for the more serious crime. Because if I think about what is the misdemeanor felony distinction, what do I want in a civilized society, maybe she deserves a higher sentence for the lesser crime than the lower sentence she would get for the more serious crime.
I think, honestly, Mathis, I think you are thinking through this more than the jury will. Honestly, I think you might be overthinking it. Let me back up just a little bit. David Halls, who just was on the stand, he pled no contest. Didn't plead guilty, pled no contest to a charge of misdemeanor negligent use of a deadly weapon. In New Mexico, a misdemeanor negligent use of a deadly weapon is considered a petty misdemeanor, which has a maximum sentence of 6 months and $500. He got the 6 months, but it was on unsupervised release, which is basically just don't get arrested in the next 6 months and everything's good. That's what it comes down to. You don't have to check in with your probation officer. You're definitely not spending time in a cell. It's a very, very light sentence.
And I can honestly kind of live with that sentence. I just think it's 24 hours of community service is maybe a little. I feel like that's not enough when someone dies, and I feel like Hannah, if she does get a long probation, I would probably really want her to get a lot of homework.
So,
and a lot of
being assigned
services.
to give speeches, to talk to schools, to go and, and give seminars at continuing education places about safety on set. We've seen some people get sentenced and have to do that, and it does it. It's basically it takes their tragedy, their misfortune, their error, and helps it be a learning situation for other people so it doesn't get repeated. That's what Dave Hall says. It's like the reason I pled guilty is because the truth has to come out. The movie industry needs to know what happened. The family needs to know what happened. Everybody needs to know what happened. And for, as far as that's concerned, he says, I had a role. Now, it just strikes me as odd that he pled no contest and not guilty. Because pleading no contest is like, look, I admit you guys can probably prove it. That just seems like not owning up as much as saying, it was me. Guilty. But it was the deal. It was the way they structured the deal. So he took the deal. Yeah, I think that the distinction here is basically he's admitting to negligence. He's pleading no contest to recklessness. He's basically saying, okay, I think I'm one step below. Let's just not go to trial, and it's not like you're going to give me a super serious sentence anyway because this is like a first offense. And I think that's fair for things to work out in practice. I just think if we look at what the law and the evidence against Hannah is, I think maybe the law maybe the evidence doesn't get to the higher crime, but maybe the law should have more enhancements for the lower crime, which is a really weird split decision because I'm basically looking at guilt and sentencing. I'm trying to reconcile that I have one view on one and oddly a different one on the other. But that's basically difficult. Where I'm at. It's difficult, and I hear what you're saying when you're saying when you're at the end of the day, we're going to measure this and we're going to say we had one life that was lost. And this was the price that was paid. It was X number of, days in prison, or months in prison, or years in prison, and this much of a dollar fine. And then we take our little math formula and we try to just cross out all the irrelevant information and make it say that one life is equal to, 6 months probation, and unfortunately it's not that clean. Yeah, it's not. In our head we feel that that life should be more. Okay, there's more weight on the life side, and why isn't it more balanced? The way the law works, it's not always balanced. It's not always. It doesn't always end with like an equal sum game where it's all everything on par and everything teeters perfectly. Mathis. As for David Halls. It's super weird to me that his version of events seems to be less incriminating against Hannah than her own version that she told police. Yeah, it shows her doing everything she was supposed to. Really, he took on, in his version of the story, he took on a bigger portion of the blame than I think Hannah did in her version. So it's he's like, I should have checked. Yeah, she didn't rotate the barrel, but I should have done. I should have said, hey, keep spinning that barrel. Let me just make sure. And for him, there were many parts of his story that said this doesn't pass the smell test for me. It sounds good, but it doesn't pass. For him to be able to just look at the head stamps, and I've seen dummies before. I know what they look like from the back. No, you don't. You don't shoot ammunition. You're not familiar with guns. You don't own guns. You've seen props before, and yep, there they are. But he's not able to just eye the head stamp. The FBI couldn't eye the head stamp and determine if it was a dummy or not without an X-ray machine. So that part, it didn't stand up. The whole, she showed me the gun. I looked down the barrel. I don't think that happened then. But
it's
anyway.
really going to be interesting to see what they do here. I thought Ian made a good point that when Ross was being cross-examined, they should have tried to pull him on their side and say, isn't it horrible, like Baldwin and production did, and they should have been less combative here. And now I don't know what to do with this witness that's like giving himself more blame than I would expect. So I'm at a loss here. I need to see what Cross is going to be.
I'll tell you one thing, that from all the people who have been on the set when this went down, aside from the cameraman who was just there to film, behind the scenes, this is one of the most relaxed witnesses we've seen. David Hall seems the most composed, even though he's emotional. He's the most relaxed recounting this because, honestly, I think he knows there's nothing on the line for him personally. He's not like trying to be careful not to say anything because I might just be charged next. That's some of the producers. They've got the deer in the headlights. They're terrified of this whole experience. But it does strike me that his words on one hand, and it resonates. We see the tears, we see him crying. He's like, it's just, it's right for the family. It's right for the family, and I'm going to plead no contest because that saves me from civil liability. So it doesn't seem like everything he said was probably as genuine, at least in my opinion, as he wanted it to sound for me. But Mathis, thank you very much, as always.
I need to think about this more. Just one last thing.
Yeah.
I super chatted you something about the thumbnail earlier that you didn't see.
Which was it?
So I deserve justice for my art.
Oh, you definitely do. I'm pulling up the super chats. Let's see. Is the thumbnail missing a suit of armor and fort hair? Yes. I've actually added, let me show you while you're on the phone so you can see. Let me move your super chat. I've added a suit of armor over here in the cart in front of the dummy and behind the silver. It's sort of hard to see, but it's there. So we have a suit of armor on the armorer's cart. I have not done a hair fort.
Ah, very good.
But I'm not sure. I might need some suggestions. Hair fort. The only problem with hair fort, and I only call that because that witness, it was such a big part of her presentation. I don't like drawing attention to a specific person's looks in testimony. That's not what we try to do here. So I probably would lean against the hair fort on the thumbnail.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe if another witness does it, then maybe we'll have to.
Well, then it's fair game. It's fair game if we get to hair forts. All right, so we do have our tax shelter up there on the butt as well, or the butte. Excuse me, I always mispronounce that. We do. Thank you, by the way. We have I got a. Who was it that sent this to me? I got a pickle with the. The belt pack, the pickle with the belt pack, as you can see down here in the corner, it's there. So we've added the little what is it? The bum bag? Is that what we're going to call that? Not sure. Anyway, Mathis, thank you very much. Love talking to you. Thank you for the super chat. I'm sorry I missed that earlier.
Yeah, no problem. And if we don't talk again, have a great weekend.
Oh, we'll talk again, I'm sure. Thanks, Mathis. We'll see you, my friend.
Bye.
Bye.
Call from
Mr. Wisconsin. How are you doing?
Hey, what's up, RA?
Oh, we're just hanging out, waiting for the break to be over. We've got just a moment. I think like 2 or 3 minutes.
Yep. I don't mind getting a hook. You know me. Like I love the hook. It's become like I'm sort of a masochist that way. I like the hook. But in any event, what do you think of the investor spokesman getting such a softball testimony here? Like,
oh man, something. There's something worth digging. I mean, I realize it probably might not be relevant to Hannah's case, but there's something worth digging into that whole story, that whole situation.
Man.
All these guys, unbuttoned necktie, the collared shirt, unbuttoned suit coat. It's like, yeah, I'm a producer. I'm up on the set all day. I'm hanging out with the actors. And then we're like, and what was your responsibility? Oh, that's not me. No. I just get donors. You know, I drink the champagne with the guy who writes the check, and we hang out with the people who have the trophies, and that's my whole gig.
Yeah. I just hang out with the winners, right? Like I'm just there for. Like I love when they said, "What did you do?" Oh, I moved a few pews away from the ambulance when they showed up. Like he was some kind of first responder.
Oh, the big guy? You talking about the big guy, the grip?
No. I'm talking about the guy with the hair. I'm talking about the same guy you are. Remember when they said, like, what did you do? And he moved a couple pews? That's what he said. Like,
that would have been Nathan Klinger?
Yeah, like
I didn't realize I missed that part. I must have been working on like the thumbnail or something. I'll have to go back and re-listen to that. We had Ryan Winterstern and Nathan Klinger were the producers, and man, that's the tax shelter. I want to spend a whole day digging into the tax shelter and who got what benefit and why, and was that the reason why this whole movie was continued even after this tragedy?
Can you tell me what the difference between a investor, basically opportunist, what's the difference between him and the guy with a cardboard sign with a plastic cup? The only difference is this guy's going to billionaires with this plastic cup and taking all the credit, right? Like, isn't it the same thing?
It is there. It is begging. It's fundraising. I mean, you could say what's the difference between begging on the side of the street and release doing an IPO, a public offering of stock. I don't know. It's convincing someone to give you money and telling them, don't worry, it'll be worth it. You'll either feel good after giving it to me, or you're going to have something of value afterwards, or you're just going to get famous.
I'm looking for Hillbilly Hedge Fund. I'm going to start Hillbilly Hedge Fund. Okay, we are looking for big shop investors.
This like the SEC will shut me down like midstream if you start advertising for a hedge fund. Now you're starting those things. What the question that the defense was asking, he's like, do you have to be like accredited, or do you have to have a certain amount of money? Yes. When you start talking about hedge funds and those types of financial investments, the rules are tight, and because the IRS
even make believe. Even make believe.
It's all make believe. If we're talking about it, it's all make believe. Ivan, thanks for not getting me in trouble. I'm going to let you go here just in case you decide to continue that conversation a little further. But
no. I love you guys. Let's get back to trial. Okay?
Thank you. We'll see you, Ivan. Right. Bye. Yeah. Oh, sorry. That was that's funny. That sound you just heard. I'm watching a police chase. I like to do two things at once, and there was a police chase with a rollover that I was watching. Old video, but not old, not super old, but I'm not sure. We'll see if we can find the original video and maybe show it on the channel. Recovery Addict is close to 4K on the second channel. Please consider subscribing. Thank you, Samantha. We are very close over there. Let's see, we're at 3,790. Oops, somebody's calling, but I don't know who it is. It's probably the SEC. That stopped. Let's try it again. Is it Bree? It keeps hanging up. I'm sorry, I'm trying, but it keeps hanging up.
Call from.
Hey, this is Scott. Who am I speaking with?
It's Bree. I don't know what it did earlier.
The phone was not on our side. What's up?
It was not. So I sent from my 505 number, because it's easier when I'm working, a link to you. It's all about the New Mexico film offers and the film production and their tax credit criterias. So minimum budget has to be at least $50,000 for the film, or $500,000 for televisions. At least 85% has to be. The products must be shot in New Mexico. So it goes through all the requirements, the tax credits, the percentages, the additional incentives, everything for you.
Thank you. And let me put this out there. This is not something that was unique to Rust. This is the movie industry all over. every state puts out incentives. They have rebates, kickbacks, programs, that they're trying to get people come to our state, make a movie here. Why? Because when you bring a movie production to your state, it actually brings in a lot of revenue. Okay, in theory, it brings in more dollars are spent, and those dollars are then re-spent through as you bring in cast and crew and catering and props and equipment and trucking and lighting and everything, just all the different people. It adds money when you bring that many people to a state. Not only that, it showcases your state. It's like, hey, we have the best looking desert. Come here to shoot your Western. We've got this little ghost town down there. We're going to give you permits. We'll rush the process through. It's going to be great. We're going to be on like America's best Western towns in top 100 list. It's a huge thing, and the states do it, and cities and governments you'll see that they want businesses to come. They want movies to come. It's not non-standard. The part I'm most interested in is the tax shelter and who was financially to benefit from this, and how that played out. Because that seems shady. You literally can sell someone a tax write-off. It's like, well, I'll pay you 75 cents for $1 reduction on my taxes. And Bree, my phone call just dropped. I apologize. You disappeared. Our phones are not connecting. But you can buy a tax write-off, and if that's legal and on the up and up, where do I sign up? Where do I sign up? That's my next question. I need to buy a tax write-off. Let's see. Connecticut gets lots of Hallmark movies shot there in Connecticut. The Navy boosting the world's economy one port at a time. American filming loves to come to Toronto and pretend it's New York. They automatically save like 25 cents on every dollar. States other than California are vying for that revenue. Yes, and Red Pan, movie productions, even a low-budget film, that's a lot of money. Unless you're like, hey, a buddy and I have a camera, and we're going to go shoot the neighbor kid who agrees. Well, by shoot, I'm talking about film. We're going to go film the neighbor kid doing a stunt on his bike. That's not what we're talking about. A low-budget film. Okay, that's TikTok. That's a social media. That's an Instagram. That's a short on YouTube. We're talking about a production that has a crew, that has a call sheet, that has catering and staff, and a low budget could be $1 or $2 million can still be a low budget film, and that money, it gets spent and respent, and it does help the state a ton. All right, where else are we? Doesn't every state have a film commission for this very reason? Yes, they do. They do, but still, like I said, the part that interested me the most, as soon as they said tax shelter, who benefits? Who sold? Who got the profits from the tax shelter being sold, and who bought the tax shelter? I'm just curious. That's all. Now, of course, I want to see if my stock options have made any money today. Nope. Here's the hot tip as far as stock options go today. Don't listen to any hot tips I ever give you on stocks, because unless you want to do the opposite, because I'm pretty sure that at any given point, if you do the opposite of what I recommend in the stock market, you will win. Because I cannot seem to. All right. The funny thing about David Hall's testimony is he said, I'm trying not to say the word shoot. And then he's like, shoot, shoot. I have to be careful how we do that. I'm trying not to say the word shot. And then it was all shot and shoot for the rest of his testimony. And the prosecutor as well. I'm not sure why he was trying not to say it. Maybe it was a triggering moment. I realized that's too soon. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. Right. Low budget in Hollywood is like $9 million, says Mr. Upper Torso. Yeah. It's that extra zero that puts us into the mediocre size budget. Nova Scotia has a huge movie industry, and when the government shut down the credits, almost 1,500 local people lost jobs. People who supported the industry. We now have our own credits back, and the stars are back. Parrot Court's like, I don't know what you're doing wrong. Parrot Court, apparently you should be sending me the stock tips. Just make sure it's not insider trading. I do not want to go to jail. I don't want to earn money that badly. Diamond hands, hold, hodl, right? No mandates. You know what hodl means. Crypto's good today. Crypto has done nothing but bad for me, except for the Bitcoin I got back when it was, $912 each. That's when I got my Bitcoin. and I still have some. What is it today, Ivan? Like 60,000 each? I wish I would have started with more than $5 worth of Bitcoin then. So, let's see. He didn't want to confuse the two meanings, film versus shot or shoot. Yeah, but he did. I mean, initially I thought he didn't want to say shot because of the triggering memory. Okay, because Helena got shot. But either way, he was not successful in not saying it. I paid 2024 bills with 2015 Bitcoins. I'm sure I'll end up on Alcatraz. Okay. Let's see, 60,500. I put 40 grand into it when it was $600 a coin. Man. Ivan. I got $5 in when it was $900 a coin. I realize it's probably on scale. It's not anywhere the same as where you're at, but that's wonderful. Congratulations. Okay. Got to go get the drum set for the funny jokes. We do have that. We've got the drum set handy. Dr. Joe has a podcast today. I show it's at 6 o'clock. Keep up the chatter. He did text me and said tonight, let me just check the message one more time and just make sure I'm not telling you wrong. I think he's starting at 6 p.m. Eastern. Dr. Joe. Messages. There we go. I've got an interesting text here. Okay, to contact through the Maya trial. I'm going to look into that. Dr. Joe. Okay, he says 6 p.m. Eastern. He's interviewing Dr. Scott Richards, the psychiatrist from the Maya trial, and another. I'm not going to spoil everything, but let's see. So it's going to be at 6 tonight. We might still be. David Halls is staying in the room. Sure. Interesting.
U.S. Court. Mr. Hall's back on.
Absolutely. Oh, okay. He's back. Oh, he's back on for cross. That's why.
Your water will be arriving shortly. Okay.
Trying to make them look as good as possible here for you.
You may be seated. Thank you, George. Yes, you're still under oath.
Still under oath.
We need counsel, so hold on. Sure.
I think this will be good. It's Mr. Bowles up. He is very good at crossing people. Yeah, he's not very good at handling depositions of your client, his own client, but he's very good at crossing people. Waiting for the headphones for the jury member. As soon as we get confirmation that she can hear, he can begin. I don't see Bree. I didn't look. I don't see her. I'm not sure if she's there right now. She might be outside. Down to my last water bottle. Hydrate, Pickle. Hydrate. Yeah, we're still going to be here at 6 p.m. It doesn't bother me at all if anyone leaves here and goes to watch the Dr. Joe. Catch us on the replay. That's great. I realize I'm not always the best thing on to watch, and I would highly recommend that you go wherever that's the best content for what you want to watch at the moment. Can we start an Addicts Book Club, Britt? I used to read a lot. A lot. I do not read as much now. I'm in articles, news, social media, and some blogs. A little bit of podcasts, but I don't read as much. My wife. Oh my goodness! If I can get my wife to do I'm trying to get her to do a live stream about her. She has like a reading journal that she made, like, where she does all artistic, and it's beautiful. And she's reading like 40 books, 40 big books this year, and like 3 of them at a time. It's crazy. Still waiting for the jury to be able to hear. George is running around working his magic. We ready? I read chat. That's what I do. Lindsay, that's a great combination. Not sure who we were waiting for, but we're here now.
I'm pretty sure it's 7. Council, there's enough.
Oh, they're going to approach again. Now we get another sidebar. Hey, how are you doing, Mrs. Larry? Hang on a second.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Charles, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sir, I want to start with a question that we have. Can you say again what you saw when she unloaded the gun after the shooting incident?
That's a jury question.
Yes.
So.
I recall seeing
that was a jury
5
question?
rounds, which were dummy rounds. They had the bright brass ends to them, holes drilled in the side of the shell casing. The projectile still on top of the shell casing, and then one shell casing without a projectile on top of it with a distinctively different looking end of the bullet.
They just asked for a repeat.
Mr. Halls, on that portion of it, when you say distinctively looking in, can you describe that a little more?
It was a metallic gray color versus the bright brass coloring of the other rounds, and it just, from my recollection, it just there was a different kind of style to the end of that bullet. In my mind, there was maybe some raised machining, if you will, or something. That's just my recollection.
Okay, sir, and do you mean the end of the casing?
The end of the casing.
So you're talking about the top of the casing, the end of it. Are you talking the top that would be empty, or the bottom of it with the primer, where the primer would have been?
If the end of the casing is round, okay, I'm looking at a full circle of the end of a shell casing.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out, there wasn't still a projectile on that round.
There was no projectile on that round.
So you're just talking about the casing and the top of that?
I'm talking about where the primer would be.
Where the primer would be. So that's on the bottom of the round?
Yes.
Okay. And you said on the bottom there's a distinctively gray kind of coloring?
Counsel, can you approach?
There's an objection. So the jury question, which was really cool because we don't often get those. The jury question was that can you restate what you saw when you saw that? And he's talking about the five dummy rounds and then the one casing. So they're keying in on what was in the gun when it was unloaded, right? And the witness, Mr. Halls, does not have the right terminology that the rest of us are familiar with. Look at they're digging through evidence right now to try to pull it up, and I don't know why they're trying to show it. The lawyers are going over the evidence. He's saying he saw 5 rounds that had the primer depressed, that had been struck, dummy rounds that had been struck, and then 1 round that had no bullet on the tip. So let's see if they get to sort this out.
Okay, sir, just one moment. We're going to pull a picture to show you.
Mm-hmm.
Picture incoming. Yeah, the jury question just sort of snuck in there at the beginning of the day after the lunch.
Your Honor, may I approach? Mr. Halls, I want to show you what's been entered as State's Exhibit 26. If you could take a look at that.
Yes.
And do you recognize that?
Yes, it looks very similar to the dummy rounds that I saw.
Okay. So that, and if I may show the jury, Your Honor, this is State's Exhibit 26. Sir, you indicated that you indicated that resembled the round you were talking about?
It resembles the dummy rounds that I saw. The ends of the dummy rounds that I saw.
The 5 dummy rounds?
Yes, sir.
Does it resemble that 6th casing?
No.
Okay. So it looked even different than that. Than what we just saw. It didn't look like that.
It did not look like that.
Okay. Okay, we may come back to that, but I appreciate that explanation. Now let me ask you some preliminary questions about your background. How long have you been in the film industry?
I started in the film industry, I think, around 1985.
Okay. So, 30 years?
Yeah.
Or
yes,
actually,
over
40 years. My math is...
They were still using film at the time.
So almost 40.
From 2021, I retired from the industry.
Okay, somewhere in there. Almost 30 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you've been a first assistant director for quite some time. How many years have you done that?
Since the mid-90s, since around 1995.
How many films over the years have you worked as a first assistant director? Do you recall?
I don't have the number, really. I don't. It's over 20. It's over. It could be 30.
Okay. And how many have you worked on where there's been an armor? Approximately.
I'm sorry, sir. I would really have to sit down and look at my resume. For sure, 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not holding you to a number, but of those 10 and those approximate 10, have you ever worked on a set where there's been a part-time armor?
No.
Okay. So Rust film was the first time you've ever been on a set involving somebody doing armor duties and something else. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Here you were aware that Miss Gutierrez Reed was performing functions of armor and props assistant?
I was.
Okay. Now, sir, as I understand, you did not have any concerns during the Rust set about Miss Gutierrez Reed's work.
I did not.
Did you believe that she was diligent in her checks of firearms on set?
I did.
Okay. When on the, let's just give an example, there'd be a day where guns were going to be used and Miss Gutierrez Reed was present as armor, would she ask you to do weapons checks with her?
Yes.
Okay. And sir, when she does a weapons check with you, is that to open and show you the barrel and make sure there's no barrel obstructions?
Yes.
And I think you described earlier that with the revolver, you could see down through it. The light goes through, you could see through the barrel.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you also recall Ms. Gutierrez Reed had a tool to push down the barrel to make sure there's no obstructions?
I don't recall seeing that tool.
But she was, would you describe her as very diligent in that process when there was a weapons check required, that she would do that with you?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know of any instance before the 21st where she did not do those weapons checks when they needed to be done with you?
None whatsoever.
Okay. I know that you would have safety meetings. Now, would you have those every day of the set?
We did not have them every day.
Okay. And I know sometimes, do you recall getting emails that people wanted to have safety meetings?
Yes.
Okay. And at one of the safety meetings, do you remember Ms. Gutierrez Reed helping you with a presentation as part of the briefing?
On day one, the first day, yes.
Okay, sir. And what did you think about her presentation regarding the gun portion?
I was very impressed with how she took control of the situation and was very clear and very instructive and communicated everything very clearly. And confidently.
Okay, and confidently. In your experience, having observed Armors and 10 other films, did she come across as seeming competent in what she was doing?
She did.
And did she come across as seeming knowledgeable about firearms?
She did.
Okay. You said that was the first day. Do you recall there being a training for a gun training specifically for the actors and crew?
Before the shooting schedule started, there was a day devoted to Ms. Gutierrez training actors.
Okay, sir. And were you present at that?
I was.
And what was your impression of that training?
Impressed. She was confident. There were some male actors, and she didn't seem to be intimidated by them, and I felt that they respected her.
Did you participate in that training?
I was just an observer.
Okay. So, in the time that you saw her doing armor duties, you didn't have any complaints about her?
None.
Okay. Now, Mr. Halls, you know that she was also doing props duties. Did you ever witness her doing specific props duties, like rolling cowboy cigarettes or propping up actors? Or?
I recall seeing her helping in propping up actors, yes.
Okay. We saw some videos earlier today of some of the scenes, and it looked like there was fairly gun-heavy scenes at times. And so there would be a lot of people walking around, some people holding weapons. Do you recall that?
Yes, there were, yes.
Okay. Now, there were a couple instances where it appeared that muzzles were of weapons were getting traced across people. Now, do you recall anything like that?
Can you clarify?
Sure. There was some testimony and some videos where, for example, a stuntman was holding a weapon, and he was kind of turning around, and it was coming across the muzzle across other people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall anything like that?
I don't recall anything.
Okay.
Like that.
Some of those, it appeared you were present on the videos. But do you remember any instances where you felt like there was an unsafe condition with the way people were pointing their muzzles?
I did not. I did not.
Now,
if I did, it was part of my practice that I always, I would say, please point the gun away. If their action as an actor was to point it at another actor, I would say, please, especially live fire situations, please make sure you're pointing the gun away from that actor.
So your habit in practice was, if you saw something like that, you would tell them, please point that gun a different direction.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Now, we saw another video where it appeared Mr. Baldwin was running out of a shack or a structure, and the cameras are panning over, and he's shooting as he's coming out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a camera, and it's a blank. They're shooting blanks out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall that scene?
I do.
Okay. Do you recall that the cameras were sort of right in front of Mr. Baldwin as he's coming out and shooting?
I do.
Do you remember having any concerns about the safety of that shot with Mr. Baldwin shooting a blank and the camera being right there? And we're not sure how many feet away, but it was...
There was a number of situations whenever there was a camera that needed to be close to a gun being fired with a blank, I would ask the operator, do you feel safe? And I would suggest that they would put we call them Fernie pads, but they're basically a packing blanket that you would see when you're moving furniture or something that typically people can wear in that situation.
Okay, sir. So, and you had a lot of experience leading up to that movie, but when you saw something like that, you said your habit and practice was to talk to the person behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you remember a scene where, it was actually that same scene, where Mr. Baldwin ran up the hill with the child actor at the end of that scene, and there was a yell for cut, and then Mr. Baldwin shoots after the yell for cut, and he utters a cuss word? Do you remember that?
Roll tape.
I only recall it because it was shown to me during a deposition in December.
Yes, sir. And I recall that was shown to you.
Yes, it was.
Now, your memory of that, did you at the time think that was a safety concern, that cut had been yelled and Mr. Baldwin shot after that directive?
I didn't register as a safety concern.
Okay. Did Mr. Baldwin at times direct people on those scenes, like the camera people, the armor? Did he sort of order people how he wanted to do it?
Again, this is recalling what was shown to me in the deposition, and he was clearly pointing a gun and asking the person that he was pointing the gun at in the direction to, please move.
Okay.
Move away from where he's pointing the gun.
Do you remember at times Mr. Baldwin rushing people to keep going, reload, let's go, let's go, let's go? Do you remember that?
Again, I was shown a video where Mr. Baldwin says, let's go. I don't characterize that as Mr. Baldwin rushing people.
Okay.
I think I characterize it as an actor in his moment. I'm ready. Okay, let's go. There was never any Mr. Baldwin rushing anybody.
Okay. So you never felt like Mr. Baldwin was rushing? Okay.
None whatsoever.
Okay. Now let me talk to you about, you became aware of 2 negligent discharges on set, did you not?
I did.
And do you remember those were approximately October 16th, 2021?
Approximately, yes.
Were you present and witness either of those incidents?
I was.
Which one or both?
Both.
Okay. At the time that you witnessed them, do you know then that one involved Sarah Zachary?
Yes.
And the other involved a stunt double?
Yes, Blake.
Blake.
Yep.
Okay. What did you do in response to each of those safety incidents?
I didn't do anything. When Blake's long gun went off, I said, "What the F is going on in there?" And he replied, "It just went off."
Okay, and so you questioned him briefly. He said that the gun just went off. Did you ask him anything else about it?
I did not.
And how about with regard to Miss Zachary?
I did not.
Okay. Now, you know that that there is a thing called a production report.
I do.
And a production report is something that has the daily events, anything significant that happened that day. Is that right?
Yes.
Would that be something that ordinarily would be put into a production report?
It's such a rare situation. I couldn't answer you. I don't think it would be a normal thing.
Well, but
hey Bruno,
whose responsibility would it be to make the production report?
It would be the second assistant director.
Okay. Would you have any responsibility to report that yourself?
I would.
And now, would this be something that you would consider noteworthy that maybe someone up the chain would want to know about?
At the time, it didn't seem to be noteworthy.
Okay.
It was just, it happened. I don't know.
Bruno, I'm going to time you out if you're abusing the Alec Baldwin counter.
Don't do that again. I don't know really what else could be done.
Okay.
If we stop, call a meeting. Don't do that again. That's the only.
Did it ever occur to you that perhaps some additional training might have been warranted for those people that had the misfires, the negligent discharges?
No.
Why did it not occur to you that maybe they needed some more training, for example, on how to hold that hammer and prevent that from falling too quickly? Why did that not occur to you?
Well, for the stunt doubles case, I'm assuming that he was an experienced stunt person that had experience with firearms, and I guess I made an assumption that Sarah had some experience in training.
And what did you make that assumption on? That assumption?
Experience, just.
Okay. So, in response to those negligent discharges, there's nothing that happens. Now, did you become aware of another discharge by special effects?
No,
were you aware of that?
No.
Okay.
I was not.
Did you? Are you aware of the safety bulletins put out by SAG?
I am.
And did you ever know that they were, or whether they were attached to the call sheets?
They were not.
Do you know who would attach those? Would that be you, if they were going to be attached?
It would be a member of my department that would do it.
Do you know why those safety bulletins were not attached?
It's not a requirement, written requirement.
Okay.
Some AD departments do it, some don't.
Now, the safety bulletin goes over the rules about firearm safety, doesn't it?
Yes.
And so that's something that, but you're saying that just varies, that some people do it, some don't?
Yes.
Okay. You talked earlier about when you would make an announcement that there would be gun usage or live fire with blanks, you had a wireless microphone?
I did.
Well, how did that work? Would that transmit through a radio or to other people, or you would just announce it on the microphone?
Often I would do it simultaneously, pushed. I would have a little microphone lapel, it would be up here. And that's normally how I would communicate. It was never. No, I usually would do it by hand with the walkie-talkie, and I would. There were times where I would do it simultaneously with the wireless microphone in my walkie-talkie.
So, if you that wireless microphone, would it just transmit into the general area around you?
Yes.
And then if you do that at the same time as your walkie-talkie, did that effectively communicate through your radio with your microphone? I mean, did that have any issues with that?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. Now, what channel, I know there was different channels on that set, what channel would you normally communicate those announcements on?
Channel 1.
Channel 1. And do you know whether the armorers were always on channel 1 or if they had a different channel?
They better have been.
Well, and I'm not saying any given time. I'm not talking about a given moment at this point. I'm just asking you, did the armorers have another channel?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Sometimes the departments might designate another channel to go to for a private conversation. Typically, channel 2 is devoted just to if there's a longer conversation that needs to happen. People can go to channel 2.
Okay. And then props, did they have their own channel?
They're on channel 1.
Okay, channel 1 is props. Okay.
Yes.
On the day in question, on the 21st, you knew that Video Village was down?
Yes.
And can you tell, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell the jury a little bit more about Video Village just so they understand it? Where was this set up?
Video Village is basically what you would, a pop-up tent that you would see at a party or an event. What are they, 10 by 10 or something like that. And then the sides would be blacked out so that no daylight could get into this what is the Video Village, where there's a monitor. In this case, it was a large monitor.
Sounds like a sweat lodge.
For 42 inches LED flat screen monitor, and that Video Village in the industry, that is referring to this place that the director of photography, the director, producers, the script supervisor can see the action, can see the shot being filmed on this monitor.
Now, ordinarily, if that were set up on that day, Ms. Hutchins and Mr. Souza would have been in that tent watching Video Village. Is that right, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my feeling. Yeah.
And because the camera crew had walked out, or the next day, Video Village is not operational. Is that right?
That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay. And is that why ultimately there was kind of a change and people were inside the church?
That's my understanding of it. Yes.
Did you know on the day, on the 21st, that things were a couple hours behind?
Very well aware of it.
Yes, sir, and I know. Did that camera crew that walked off, did they come back that next day? The camera crew that walked off the day before, did they come back the next day?
They came back. I saw them there that morning to retrieve with some of their personal items, I would think. Yeah.
Were you able to meet with the new camera crew that came that day?
Not until they first appeared on set with the camera. It took a while for them to get the camera built into set.
So this is literally, they're coming on that morning and they're building a camera into set.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, once they get that set up, things start rolling. Before lunch, you described that you're in the church with Mr. Baldwin. Is that right? There's other people in there, but you're in that church with Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, yes.
Now, I think you said at some point Miss Gutierrez Reed came in the church and she presented the revolver. Is that right?
We're talking about after lunch?
No, this is before lunch.
Yes, we did some scenes with Mr. Baldwin and the actor that was portraying his grandson.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was before lunch.
That was before lunch.
Did Miss Gutierrez Reed bring that revolver before lunch?
Yes.
And was that when you said that she showed it to you and it was empty?
That was one of the occasions on that day that she showed me that the gun was empty, yes.
Okay, so that was one of the occasions. What was the other occasion that she showed you it was empty?
After lunch.
Okay, so we start off before lunch and the revolver is empty. Now, is he doing the same, Mr. Baldwin doing the same blocking scene?
It is not my recollection. I don't recall him doing that.
Okay.
That scene.
So it's a different type of scene, but in any event, there's an empty firearm. There's no rounds loaded in that. Is that right?
That's correct.
Was there any reason why a rubber or a replica gun wasn't used?
Is there any reason why a replica? Because it would look like a rubber gun.
Or was it a rehearsal or actual filming?
At what time period are we talking about, sir?
Before lunch.
I recall just a dialogue scene between Mr. Baldwin and the actor playing his grandson, and it was just the gun in his holster.
Okay. Do you not recall him, Mr. Baldwin, pulling that out before lunch?
I don't recall that before lunch.
Okay. Well, after lunch, you said that Ms. Gutierrez Reed brought the firearm back again, and you said initially you're saying that it was unloaded again.
Yes.
Did she again show you the barrels and check that gun with you?
I'm sorry. After lunch?
Yes.
Yes. She held the gun. Let's do the gun check. Just checked the barrel. Did a full rotation of the drum of the cylinder.
Okay.
How?
And then what? And then I think you said after that she walked over a few steps, and what you're saying is she handed the firearm to Mr. Baldwin. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, you then say that you don't see her leave, right?
I recall seeing her walk past me. She gives the gun to Mr. Baldwin, turns, and walks away.
Where did she walk away to?
She walked past me. I didn't see where she went.
You did not see her leave the church, though, did you?
I did not.
But then you also testified that at some point she's back beside you with the firearm again, and it's got rounds in it. Is that right?
She told me that she put dummy rounds into the gun. Yes.
So, when you were near Mr. Baldwin, that church, does it have one entrance?
I believe so. Yeah, I think it's only there might be a door that I didn't see in the back where the altar would be, but certainly at the front of the church.
Front of the church.
Yeah.
So, and how big is that church?
Oh, 20 by 30, 20.
So approximately 600 square feet, roughly.
I'll let you do that math, Mr. Bowles.
It's smaller than my
I could be
Airbnb.
wrong, but I think it's about 600 square feet. So within that,
it would be, the width would be from pretty much from here to that wall, and then where we enter.
Okay, so for the record, you're pointing with your left hand to the side of the judge's desk, to Her Honor's desk, and the wall on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And then from where you're seated to right behind counsel?
Yes.
Okay, where you come in. Okay. So that's about the size of the church. Now, you are sitting there fairly close to Mr. Baldwin, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Standing there.
And then you say you don't see Miss Gutierrez leave at all, Miss Gutierrez Reed leave, and then she comes back with a firearm again. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, now you then state that she shows you what you believe are 3 or 4 rounds in the firearm?
Yes, sir.
And did she do that how did she do that?
I don't know if she did a full rotation. I don't recall a full rotation. And my recollection is seeing 3 to 4 rounds.
So if she had done a full rotation, you would have seen every cylinder in that, right?
In retrospect, I would like to think I would have, yes.
Okay. Because after everything happens, we know that you said it's unloaded and there's 5 dummies in 1 casing. So that's 6, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So is it possible that you did see every cylinder, or how do you reconcile that? There's 3 or 4 rounds before, but there's 6 rounds after.
Because there was not a full rotation of the cylinder to show me 6 rounds. Again, my recollection is only seeing 3 to 4.
But you don't recall whether that was a full rotation or not?
I don't recall if it was a full rotation or not, yeah.
Now if that had not been, that would not be a full weapons check with you, correct?
I have stated that, yes.
Okay, but yet you testified earlier, every time before this, since the start of the Rust filming, Miss Gutierrez Reed always did a complete weapons check with you.
Yes.
So You're saying that this time, for whatever reason, she abandoned her habit and everything she had done before, and you had praised her for doing a good job.
Mhm.
And somehow on this occasion, you're saying that there wasn't a full rotation. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, why didn't you say something? That I'd like to see. all
Again,
this-
this is what I am admitting to, that I did an improper check of that firearm.
And so, after you admittedly do an improper check of the firearm, isn't it true that you handed that firearm to Mr. Baldwin?
It's not true.
Do you know that your account conflicts with Mr. Baldwin's?
I am aware of that.
And do you know that it conflicts with Ms. Gutierrez-Reed?
I am aware of that, but however, in Mr. Baldwin's initial statement with Detective Hancock, a few hours after the incident on October 21st, when asked the question who handed him the gun, he said Hannah did, like she always did.
And after that, he changed and said you had handed it to him, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Right after this happened, the shooting happened. Do you remember you were standing outside with Mr. Baldwin talking with him, kind of near a truck?
Yes, I do.
Do you recall what you all were talking about? Were you talking about the events and kind of how this could have happened? And
yeah, yes.
So you were kind of discussing and kind of trying to remember with each other what had occurred. Is that fair?
Most of the discussion was what was it that entered their bodies? And I think to a person that was sequestered, that was the tone of the discussion. And certainly the discussions that I had with Mr. Baldwin, we were both, was it a blank? Was it just that idea of a live round, again, being on a film set was just uncomputable.
Was it inconceivable that there would be a live round on set?
Yes.
And in fact, I mean, did you ever dream that there would be a live round? And you're thinking, talking to Mr. Baldwin, did you have any thought of that?
Honestly, no.
Okay. Yeah. Now, after you all talked, Mr. Baldwin, did you talk with him again after the shooting and after that day, the 21st?
No.
Okay. If at the moment that this had happened, I know you indicate that Ms. Gutierrez-Reed gave him the firearm, but if you had provided him the firearm, which you're denying, I know, you're saying that didn't happen. If that had happened, and Ms. Gutierrez-Reed were not in the church at that moment, that would have been your responsibility under the safety bulletin to ensure the safe operation, right?
Can you state that again and clarify?
Yeah, that was pretty long. Under the safety bulletin, if the property master and armor are not present during a gun scene, and you are the person there, do you agree with me that the responsibility would then fall on the first assistant director in a general scene for safety?
I don't recall seeing any language about the assistant director taking responsibility for the firearm if there is a prop master or armor not present.
Okay, sir, do you recall giving a deposition in this matter?
Yes.
Okay, and if I can just, before I get into that, I just want to kind of give you a few more details, see if you remember that under the safety advisory bulletin, that the first assistant director becomes the person responsible for maintaining and handling weapons if the property master and armor are not present. Do you recall that?
I don't recall that language.
Okay.
If you're saying it's there, and okay. You can, yeah.
Well, do you recall being in this on page 121 at line 6? If you had known that Hannah, had you known that she wasn't in the church, meaning Hannah, Under this guideline, would you perhaps be the individual responsible for maintaining and handling weapons? And your answer, if I knew that she was to be leaving the church, yes, it would. And knowing that the gun was cold as I believed it to be, as she believed it to be, as Mr. Baldwin was told it was to be, yes, I would be that person. I have worked in productions where an actor would have a gun. Do you remember that portion?
Yes.
Okay. And there's one more portion you gave just for completeness. And you know, maybe the actor wasn't necessarily on set, and the prop master who was handling the guns, because there was no live fire, again, it's a prop. So the prop master is responsible for these guns. He would often say, not often, but there have been a couple occasions where I have to go to my cart, get something. Can you watch the gun? And I would watch the gun. Do you recall giving that answer, sir?
I do.
Okay. And does that refresh your memory that if you know that they're not present, that sometimes you may be responsible?
If I knew that they were not present, yes, I would be, I guess, the next one in line to be responsible, yeah.
Okay. And so your testimony is that you did not know that Hannah had left the church. So my question was, if that had occurred, if she had left the church and you had provided the gun to Baldwin, would you have been responsible? And I think what you said, you didn't know she left the church. Is that right?
I did not know that she left the church.
Okay. Do you recall checking that weapon, regardless of who handed it to Mr. Baldwin? Do you recall checking that weapon again by yourself?
I never checked that gun by myself.
Okay. Do you recall whether Mr. Baldwin checked that gun?
I do not recall.
Okay. Had you seen Mr. Baldwin retrieve a firearm before from Miss Gutierrez Reed on another day?
Yes.
When you saw him before, did he check the weapon?
I don't recall.
Okay. Regarding when you and Miss Gutierrez Reed unloaded that firearm, the revolver, you walked out, and I think you said you went to a cart on the left side of the church. So, do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, do you recall that the prop cart at that point was near the black tent, or where that prop cart was?
Do I recall where the cart was?
Yes.
Yes.
Where?
Left-hand side, if you're standing in front of the church, looking at the front door, left-hand side, immediately around the corner. So if the front of the church is facing north, the left-hand side of the church would be facing east. It was just directly right around the corner.
This man knows his directions.
Do you recall that prop cart moved at some point after the police had arrived?
After the police arrived?
Yes.
Yes, I have a recollection of it being in a different location.
Did you ever see Miss Sarah Zachary, over by the prop cart after the shooting?
She was present when I asked Hannah to unload the gun, yes.
Did you see whether she was inspecting anything on the cart or touching any of the items on the cart?
I don't have a recollection of seeing her touch anything, but I do have a recollection of her making a comment that
was close.
Some of them don't shake.
Okay, so if she made that comment, then she must have been checking and shaking the rounds, right?
I would assume so, yeah.
Okay, did you witness that?
I did not see her actually shaking any rounds.
Okay. Did you see any other persons at that moment near the cart or at the cart?
No.
Okay.
I think I do remember Johnny. Can't pronounce his last name.
Ziello?
He was behind us. Yeah, I have a recollection of him being there.
Was that Johnny Ziello?
Yeah.
Okay. So he was there with you at or near the cart?
Near the cart, yeah. I believe he was behind me.
Behind
I
you.
just have a recollection of seeing him there.
Okay. After the firearm, the revolver was unloaded, did you get those rounds? You personally?
No, I never touched those rounds.
Okay. Do you remember whether Miss Gutierrez Reed ever gave those to you after?
She did not give them to me.
Where did those rounds? Did she have them?
I just saw them as she unloaded the gun. They fell onto the cart, and that's my recollection of what ended up with those rounds.
Okay. And did you see anybody pick those up?
I did not.
Okay. Now, in this case, you indicated you had pled no contest, right?
Yes.
And you pled to a misdemeanor offense?
Yes, sir.
And you said that was negligent use of a firearm, correct?
Yes, sir.
You received a sentence of 6 months unsupervised probation, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So under the unsupervised probation, you did not have to report to a probation officer?
I did not.
And there was no conditions except not violating any laws, right?
I had to take a firearms safety class.
Okay. Did you complete that firearms safety course?
I did.
And so now you're off probation, and that's it, right?
I'm just going to object to relevance. Oh, I'm sorry, Judge. Roach.
I'm just going to object to relevance. Nope, you have to raise your hand, let the judge acknowledge you. Then you get to walk to the front of the class, explain to the judge what your objection is. Then we'll rule on it. We're going into the sentence, the penalty that Mr. Halls received for his no contest plea. Usually, the speaking objection is referred to as why you're making the objection to relevance. Most judges allow the attorneys to stand up and say objection relevance or objection hearsay or objection, facts not in evidence, whatever their objection is. Looks like prosecution won that one on the relevance count. He got it in anyway. The jury heard. This judge hasn't been striking things from the record very much.
Sorry, sir, for that delay. One other question. When Ms. Gutierrez Reed was present in your presence, did you ever hear her call out blank sizes, for example, if they were going to be used a quarter load or a half load? Or
I do.
Okay. And was she good about doing that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so David Halls is the only person who's basically said Hannah did her job perfectly.
Sir, I want to talk to you about the other instance that you recall where dummy rounds were used. I think you indicated they were in a rifle.
Yes.
Did you request dummy rounds be placed in the rifle?
No.
Did anyone else that you're aware of request?
I'm not aware of anyone else that requested them.
Okay.
Dummy rounds.
Do you know why dummy rounds are used in revolvers?
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, if the shot is close up enough on the revolver, I don't think you necessarily need to have experience with a firearm, but one could detect that that gun is not loaded with any rounds. So that's the reason why we use dummy rounds. Cosmetic.
Because if the revolver is pointed at me, the dummies are in there so that you can see the projectiles inside the cylinder, right?
Correct.
Is that the same way that a rifle is set up?
No, but in this case, and just from recollection, I think there was there was something about that long gun that you could see that the rounds would be loaded. If this was the barrel of the gun, that the rounds would be loaded somewhere and it would be visible.
To the best of your recollection, was there actually filming of a scene that would show that part of that rifle?
Was there actually? It's only my speculation that it was a shot that was close up on that, close up enough on that long gun that Hannah made a decision that, to make this look correct, that dummy round should be in this.
Is that your recollection or is that your assumption?
She told me that and I saw her load the dummy rounds into the long gun.
Okay, but my question for you is, dummy rounds are put in guns because you're going to roll film, right?
Yes.
Do you have a specific recollection of there being a videotape of that rifle being loaded or unloaded or cycling?
No.
Okay.
I don't have a recollection of that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
There's no recollection of a shot of that rifle being loaded.
Okay. The entire time that you worked with Ms. Gutierrez on the set of Rust, do you have any recollection of ever seeing her shake a dummy round?
I do not.
On cross-examination, well, also on direct, you testified that the dummy rounds that you saw come out of the revolver after the incident had shiny brass primers. Is that right?
Well, if you want to get technical, right, it would be the end of the casing, which would have the primer in the center of that circuit that's bright brass. Yes.
You understand what the primer of the casing is, correct?
I do.
And your recollection is that the dummy rounds that were taken out of the gun had shiny brass primers, right?
Yes.
And do you agree with me that State's Exhibit 26, and I'm happy to come closer to you.
Yeah, well, if you could, just
okay. Well, let's do that. Let me show you State's Exhibit 26 again.
Yes.
Is that a shiny brass primer?
Honestly, my recollection is that they were a little bit more shinier than what you're showing me.
Well, hang on. Is that close enough for you? And I know I have old eyes also, so I sympathize with you.
I'm sorry. Are you calling me old? I am. That's all right.
Is that primer brass?
That primer does not appear to be brass.
Okay, thank you, sir. And let me ask you, when was the last time, well, you saw a spent casing come out of that revolver, correct?
I did.
When was the last time you saw that spent casing?
At the moment when I asked her to unload the gun.
On October 21st, 2021?
Yes.
All right. I just want to clear up a point that on cross-examination I was a little confused about. You indicated that Mr. Baldwin initially said that Hannah handed him the gun and then changed his story.
Yes.
Did he change his story, if you recall, during the interview with Detective Hancock on the 21st?
No.
Did he change it after that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know when the first time was that you realized that he had a different version of events?
It was shortly after when when Hannah made a statement that that I gave the gun to Baldwin.
I'm just wondering when that would have been.
I don't know. It was months, maybe.
Months after October.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Bowles asked you about the safety bulletins and that when the armorer isn't present, that the first assistant director is kind of in charge of guns, right?
Yes.
Is it your understanding that that safety bulletin contemplates the first assistant director being told that the armorer is going to leave the area?
Yeah, I don't. That's not in that document.
That's the wrong answer.
How are you supposed to know that she's left if you're not told that she's left?
Correct. I only know that she's left if she's telling me she's leaving or if I see her leave.
Okay. And as first assistant director, you have a lot of other responsibilities other than checking the gun and keeping an eye on the armorer, don't you?
I do.
Okay.
Is that right, Mr.?
I'm sorry?
Did you withdraw your objection?
He's already answered, so.
Okay.
Okay. And I don't have anything further. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So once again, in prosecution on redirect, the witness answers the opposite way.
All right, next witness.
And they have to bring it around. Are we getting... Whoa. Who do we have? Who's coming in? Who did they just call? This is Sarah. Sarah Zachary. Oh, this is getting good. Okay, here we go.
Do you swear affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you'll give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, you're going to have to speak up, talk into the microphone, and have a seat.
I want you to move that microphone closer to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Will you state your name for the record?
Sarah Zachary.
All right.
Oh, she's nervous.
Ms. Zachary, in 2021, were you doing work in the film industry?
Yes.
Are you still doing work in the film industry?
No.
Why not?
After arrest, I didn't want to work in it anymore.
Okay. Prior, were you employed on the set of the movie Rust?
Yes.
In what capacity?
I was the prop master.
And briefly, what does a prop master do?
A prop master is responsible for sourcing and providing production with anything that an actor interacts with during the time of filming.
So when you say anything that an actor interacts with, does that include firearms?
It does.
Does it include hand sanitizer?
If the actor is touching it, then yes.
Okay. A bowl of soup?
If the actor is touching it.
Okay. Any of those things?
Any.
Tables, chairs?
That would be set deck.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Anything that they hold.
Okay. What was your experience in the film industry before you began work on the set of Rust?
I began in the art department as set deck, and then on one production I was supposed to be in costumes, but then I became a prop master when the original prop master couldn't work on it anymore. So I had to learn on the job how to do that, and that's what what job I progressed with throughout my career in film.
What is set deck?
Set deck, it just means that you're decorating the set.
How many films did you work on in any capacity?
Possibly like 5 or 6.
Also fairly new.
And can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury who Seth Kenny is?
Seth Kenny was the vendor for the firearms and ammunition on the set of Rust.
Did you know Mr. Kenny prior to your work on the set of Rust?
Yes, he was a vendor for a previous film that I did before Rust.
How long had you known him before Rust?
A couple of months.
And Did you ever take on a small armor role?
I did. On another film, when I was the prop master, they couldn't find a armor for that set, so they just told me right away that I was going to be the armor.
Apparently there's no...
And who's they? Are you talking about production?
Production, producers.
Same producers?
So, let me be clear.
There's no training, there's no certification. It's just,
Do you own
hey, you're
guns?
armor.
No.
Have you ever shot a gun?
No.
What kind of training, if any, did you receive before another film made you armorer?
I was recommended on a separate film to get in touch with Seth Kenny, and he was the one who trained me to use the specific guns on that set. Thank you. As well as train me how to load and unload those weapons, how to call out different cues on set when you're working with weapons. That's about it.
How long was that training? Did it take days, hours?
A few days.
And were you trained on single action revolvers for that film?
Just one, yes.
It was a revolver?
It was a revolver.
Was it a single action revolver?
That I'm not sure.
Okay.
She's not sure.
That production that you
The
were the
training will
armor
cover that in
on,
detail.
is that a production that had lots of gunfight scenes?
No.
How busy was that movie in terms of armorer duties?
I mean, we had the guns on set every day, but in terms of actually utilizing those guns with things such as blanks or dummies, maybe 2-3 days.
Okay. And have you, prior to Rust, is that the sum total of the experience you've had with firearms?
Yes.
So how do you end up being the prop master on Rust? Do you apply for a job? What happens?
A lot of it is word of mouth when it comes to the industry, but Seth Kenny was the one who asked me if I wanted to work on it, and he said that he had sent my resume to the line producer.
The resume
and were
is
you
like,
interested
let's
in
see,
working on it?
McDonald's, good grades in high school. Yeah, she's
And
in.
at
We've got
some
an
point
armorer.
in time, did you understand that you were going to be working with an armorer?
Yes, Seth Kenny said that he had an armorer in mind.
And did that person turn out to be Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Did we understand from some of the previous testimony that although you were the prop master, you were also loading and unloading some of the firearms, is that right?
Correct.
How did you go from prop master to handling firearms?
So originally there was supposed to be a separate armorer's assistant, but production had only allotted for 5 days, and that was not going to be enough because of how many gunfights we had that we read through the script. So instead, it was recommended that I help out since I was already going to be on set.
And so, did you receive any training from Ms. Gutierrez so that you would be able to competently load and unload the guns?
Briefly, yes.
When you say briefly, how much training did you receive from Ms. Gutierrez?
A few minutes.
And so bad.
Had you, and let me try to back up. When I say single action revolver, do you know what I'm talking about?
Not quite, no.
Okay. So,
It affects how the gun fires. Very, very, very important.
Let me ask you this. On the previous movie set that you were working on as the armorer, you said there was a revolver.
Correct.
Was that the kind of revolver where the barrel would completely come out and away from the gun for you to load and unload it?
Yes, the cylinder came out on the side. Yes.
The cylinder's kind of, the entire thing flops out.
The barrel doesn't come out. The cylinder does. Barrel's not the right word.
And was that the same style of revolver as what you were using on the set of Rust?
No.
What was the difference?
The difference mainly was the way that you would load and unload it. Part of that maneuver was pulling back the hammer and the trigger at the same time, and then slowly releasing both of those to lock it back in place.
Okay. And that was something that was very new to you, is that right?
Correct.
The first time you'd ever done that was on the set of Rust?
Yes.
And you got 10 minutes of training?
About, yes.
No.
We understand at some point that there were some accidental discharges on the set. Do you recall those?
Correct, yeah.
Did one of them involve you?
Yes.
Probably because you were pulling the trigger and the hammer at the same time.
Can you just explain to the
as you're
jury
trying to
what the
load
circumstances were of that accidental discharge?
Yes. So we had a gunfight between a few different actors where I was helping to load blanks, and when we were going in for another take, I had to unload the blanks that were already discharged and fill the gun with new ones. And as I was loading them and locking the gun back into place, the hammer slipped from my thumb and one of the rounds went off. There is no projectile, so it was just a loud pop and a flash.
Did that incident, well, let me ask you this, if you recall, do you recall where Ms. Gutierrez was, the reason that you were doing it and not her?
I believe at that point she was in the bathroom.
And did that incident create any kind of a conflict between you and Ms. Gutierrez?
She just didn't know if I would be capable to work with guns anymore after that, even though I had cleared everything that happened on set. I apologized to everyone. I messaged the people I need to let them know what happened. But I mean, there was just a little bit of disagreement, but then we moved on.
Okay. Who did you message to notify people of what happened?
I messaged Seth, Kenny, Ro Walters, and the production designer, Brian Norvell.
And was Brian Norvell kind of a supervisor of yours?
I would say so. That's what I saw him as.
Okay. You have previously been referred to as being Hannah Gutierrez's boss. Mm-hmm. Were you Hannah's boss?
Not that I was aware of.
In terms of firearms and firearms safety on set, whose job was that?
The armorers.
To the best of your recollection, on approximately how many occasions, well, let me back up. Did you aid in loading guns and gun belts with dummy rounds?
Guns, yes. The gun belts already had dummy rounds in them.
Okay, let's talk about that. So, in terms of the props, the gun belt props, for this movie, do you recall who sourced those? Where did they come from?
As far as I know, Hannah brought them from a different set.
From another movie she'd worked on?
Correct.
Did you see them?
Yes.
And when they arrived on set, were they empty, or did they have to be loaded with dummies?
They only had to have a couple at most put in them because they were lost, fell out. That's about it.
Okay, but the gun belts that Ms. Gutierrez provided were already loaded with dummies when she brought them on set. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding, yes.
And that's your recollection?
Yes.
And you saw them?
Yes.
So when she brought them on set and they were already loaded with dummies, did you take the time to remove every dummy and shake them?
No.
Did you see her take the time to remove every dummy from the belts and shake them?
No.
Did you see anyone?
No.
Because you guys had another assistant for a little while, Ms. Montoya, is that right?
Correct.
And did Ms. Montoya, you never saw her do that with those?
That wasn't her job, no.
Okay. So
At this point, I'm concerned for Ian's liver tonight during his live
do
stream.
you begin
He's
working
have to
on the
drink.
movie on the first day of filming?
No, we have prep days where we go through the script and prepare everything that we need to start production.
Do you recall the day that filming began?
October 6th.
And when would you have begun work on this movie?
I was contacted on September 23rd, and I had about until September or October 6th to prep for that.
Because you are the prop master, did you participate in getting guns and ammunition from the vendor to the movie set?
Yes.
Who was the vendor for the guns? Where did the guns come from?
Seth Kenny.
And what's the name of the company that he owns?
PDU Props and Arms.
And what about the blank ammunition? Who provided that?
Seth Kenny.
In terms of the dummy ammunition, can you explain to the jury what the situation was with dummy availability at the beginning of the movie?
We had, Seth Kenny and another vendor named Billy Ray had provided a few boxes of dummy rounds.
Were those dummy rounds 45 long Colt?
No.
So at the beginning of the movie, had Seth Kenny provided any 45 long Colt dummies?
No.
At some point during filming, did Mr. Kenny provide 45 long Colt dummies?
Yes.
And how were those provided?
Hannah had requested for 45 long Colts, and on one of our weekends, around October 12th, I went and picked them up from Albuquerque on one of her days off.
So you picked up the first box of 45 long Colt dummies from Mr. Kenny on October 12th.
Correct.
Was that the only box of 45 long Colt dummies that Mr. Kenny ever provided?
Correct.
When Ms. Gutierrez brought the gun belts and they already had the dummy rounds in them, if you recall, did she also have boxes of dummy rounds?
I don't remember what she provided.
Okay. You just don't recall?
I just don't remember. No.
Okay. Was there an issue with the 45 long Colt dummies? Were you struggling? Did you guys not have enough?
As far as I was concerned, Hannah just had requested them. I felt like we had plenty to work with, but she said that they just didn't, the ones that we did have just didn't fit quite as right.
Okay. In terms of the dummy rounds, during the time that you were working on Rust, who was the person in the position to make a decision about whether or not to use dummies?
Hannah.
Was there ever a time that you heard anyone else, a crew member or a cast member, request that dummies be put in a gun?
No.
During the time that you were working with Ms. Gutierrez on Rust, approximately how many times that you're aware of were guns dummied up? Were dummies put in guns?
I don't recall. A handful of times, maybe.
A handful of times?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you participate? Were you handling the dummies?
Yes.
And why were you handling the dummies?
It was usually if there were 2 or more guns on set to move things along, because I was also acting as an assistant for her when it came to the weapons.
Okay, so you're the prop master. Technically, she's kind of under you, but you were also sort of her assistant.
Correct.
Okay. So with regard to your handling of dummy rounds on set, where were they? How would you get them? Did you get them from Ms. Gutierrez, or did you have access to them?
I had access to them.
And where were they located?
Originally on the prop truck, and then as far as I know, we brought them on the cart when we needed them.
Okay. When you loaded a gun with dummies, what did you do to make sure that the rounds were dummy rounds and not live rounds?
Rattle them.
Did all of the dummy rounds that you handled, did they all rattle?
Yes.
Were there any dummy rounds on set that had holes in them?
Yes.
And did you ever handle any of those?
No.
Someone is wheezing into a mic. I can hear it. I
Did
hate to bring it up, but right at the end of the question
ever
here.
see Ms. Gutierrez load dummy rounds
That's driving me
into
nuts.
any of the revolvers?
I wasn't paying attention to her loading them.
You weren't paying attention?
No.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you load the revolvers with all the dummy rounds, or was that something she did also?
She did them as well.
Okay. In the entire time that you worked with Ms. Gutierrez on the set of Rust, do you have any recollection of a single time that you saw her rattle a dummy?
I can't recall.
You don't recall ever seeing her do that?
No.
Okay. And does that mean she may have and you just didn't see it?
Correct.
Were you guys working pretty closely together?
Yes.
And you don't recall ever seeing her do that?
Not that I can remember.
Okay. Now, do you recall any time that dummy rounds were loaded into a lever action rifle? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
You know the rifle I'm talking about?
I am.
Okay, do you recall an occasion when dummy rounds were loaded into that rifle?
I remember blanks, but not dummy rounds.
Okay. Did you ever load blanks or dummies into that rifle?
No.
Did you ever load blanks or dummies into the revolver that was Mr. Baldwin's prop?
No.
And why not? Was there some kind of a division of labor agreement there?
Hannah was just working closely with Alec, and so when Alec requested the guns, he would call for Hannah.
Okay, and you never loaded or unloaded it?
No, not that I recall.
My mic is muted, so it can't be me.
Give me just one moment.
sorry, you can see why I was confused a little bit, DMB.
So, to be clear, the only 45 long Colt dummy rounds that you brought to the set was the one box from Seth Kinney.
Correct.
And do you know where the other 45 long Colt dummies came from?
No.
When you were working on set, did you occasionally take photos with your cell phone?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of taking photos with your cell phone?
Mainly for continuity.
And what do you mean when you say continuity?
With continuity, during a scene, you have you do several takes during the scene, and you just want to make sure that with the props that they look exactly the same throughout each take. So you want to make sure that there's continuity throughout the entire scene.
And I'm going to shift gears for a moment. Did you bring onto the set the dummy rounds from Billy Ray?
Yes.
Were those 45 long Colt?
No.
And what day did you bring those onto the set?
I brought those ones on prior to filming, I believe.
Okay, so it would have been before October 6th.
That one I can't recall. I don't remember what date it was.
Okay, is there anything, do you have anything that would refresh your memory? Would it refresh your memory if you looked at your phone, or is that information not in there?
It might be in an email on an invoice.
That's okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Give me just 1 second.
Let's see if we can get the two sides to agree to stipulate to this. I'm not sure who's, I think it's the witness or possibly the judge.
Your Honor, I'm going to move for the admission of State's Exhibit 162 and State's Exhibit 163 and ask for permission to publish once we're connected.
I object.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor. There was no objection. I'm sorry, that was me. I pushed the
163
wrong
is
button.
admitted. You may publish.
How'd you like to be an attorney billing, I don't know, what, $400+ an hour and have your primary duty to be plugging in the computer in court? It's like, I went to law school for this.
So we're currently publishing what has been admitted as State's Exhibit 162. Ms. Zachary, do you recognize that photo?
Yes.
Is that a photo that you took?
Yes.
On what day did you take that photo?
On October 10th.
And how do you know that?
Because it is in my phone and I saw the date on it.
Okay. You actually looked up the date, is that right? So this photo was taken 2 days before you brought the 45 long Colt dummies onto the set from Mr. Kinney.
Look at that bottom right-hand corner. We've got.
And I'm going to show you what we have marked as State's Exhibit 163. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What is that a photo of?
It is a photo of dummies in Alec Baldwin's holster rig.
And has that also been referred to as a bandolier?
Yeah.
Okay. But so this was Mr. Baldwin's prop. This was his gun holster.
Yes.
Do you recall the date that you took this photo?
October 13th.
October 13th.
Mm-hmm.
And if you recall, was Mr. Baldwin's holster a holster that was provided by Ms. Gutierrez?
No.
Where did that holster come from?
Seth Kinney had it specially made for Alec Baldwin, and he shipped it out to us.
And are you the person that received it?
Yes.
When you received it, did it already have dummy rounds loaded in it?
No.
Do you know who loaded the dummy rounds into Mr. Baldwin's holster that we're looking at here in 163?
I don't remember specifically if it was me or Hannah.
But it would have been one of the two of you?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Zachary, I'm gonna take you to
Special place.
October 21st of 2021. Do you recall that day?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jurors, to the best of your recollection, what was happening on set prior to the lunch hour?
It was a very slow-moving day because a few hours into that day, we had learned that the part of the crew, or part of the camera crew, had left production, and we were working on getting a replacement team that day.
So was there a delay in filming that morning?
Yes.
And when there's a delay in filming, what do you do? Are you still busy doing props?
I was coordinating with the art director about props for later that day, but otherwise we weren't really actively working.
And given that they weren't filming anything, was Ms. Gutierrez very busy?
No.
So would she have had time that morning to do whatever she needed to do?
Sure.
And at some point, does filming begin again?
Yes, but I don't remember what time.
Okay, would it have been before or after lunch, if you recall?
We moved up to the church to a different scene. We did have one scene that we were filming that morning, but then sometime later that morning we moved to the church for a new scene.
It's not the
and
witness.
As far as I remember, we only got in a rehearsal, but we weren't really actively working yet.
Okay, and do you remember going to lunch?
Yes.
What happened after lunch? What were you doing after lunch?
After lunch, we drove back in the van to set, and Nicole, Hannah, and I had retrieved the guns out of the safe and returned them back to the church.
It is the witness.
And then I had learned that I had forgotten one of the guns in the safe, so I went back to retrieve it, and
okay, hang on.
Okay.
Were you and Hannah and Ms. Montoya handling any guns prior to the lunch hour?
To take back to the truck, yes, and then in the one scene that we did, the actors had their guns holstered. So
when you say to take back to the truck, tell us what you mean to take back to the truck from where?
So when we were breaking for lunch, we were taking the guns back from the cart and locking them up in the safe on the prop truck.
So the guns were used in the morning. Do you recall when the guns were used in the morning, were dummies put in them?
I don't recall that, no.
And is that something that you think you would recall, or?
No, I don't remember what the scenes were entirely. I don't know if it was more than one scene.
Okay. But guns were brought out and used in the morning session. You just don't know if they had dummies in them or not.
Correct.
So after lunch, the three of you go and you pull guns out of the safe.
Correct.
And are you all there together?
Yes.
You can see what the other person is doing.
Yes.
how far is the prop truck from the church?
Couple 100 yards, maybe more than that.
So did all three of you take guns in your hands up to the area where the church was?
Yes.
And when you got up there, what did you guys do with those guns, if you recall?
Laid them on the prop cart.
And then, is that when you went back to the truck?
I know that I had loaded Jensen Ackles' gun, and when I had realized that I'd forgotten Swen's gun, I had said that I was going to go back to the truck. Hannah said that she was going to go check Alec's gun with Dave, and Nicole stayed with the cart.
When you say you loaded Jensen Ackles' gun, what did you load it with?
I loaded it with dummies.
And where did you get those dummies from?
They were on the cart.
Did you take them out of a box, or were they just laying there?
They were in a cup holder at the top of the cart.
Okay. Is that the only gun that you loaded dummies in that afternoon?
Swen's as well, Swen Temmels.
Okay, so you go back to the truck, you get Swen's gun, and then do you come back up to the church?
Yes.
And where are you when you load that gun with dummies?
I believe at the cart.
At that point in time, if you recall, where was the cart?
It was outside of the church, several yards away.
Okay. So after you put the dummies in the gun, and I'm sorry, did Ms. Gutierrez walk away from the cart with Mr. Baldwin's gun?
Yes.
And who put the dummies in Mr. Baldwin's gun?
Hannah.
Did you happen to see or take note of where she took the dummies from to put in the gun?
She says she was going to check it with Dave, so I assume the church.
No, I mean when she put the dummies in. Did you see her?
No.
Okay, you don't know where she got those dummy rounds from?
No.
So then she says she's going to go in the church and check it with Dave, is that right?
Yes.
And do you see Ms. Gutierrez again?
No.
When is the next time that you see her?
After the incident.
So the two revolvers that you loaded with dummies, Mr. Ackles' gun and the other gentleman, what happened to those revolvers?
I believe I threw them away.
No. What happened to the revolvers?
The revolvers? We took them back to the truck with the rest of them.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Okay.
It's okay. I know. Have you ever testified before?
No.
Okay. I know. It's not the easiest of things. You take the Ackles gun and Swen's gun and you put dummies in them, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with the guns at that moment?
Sorry.
That's okay. I'll get you there. It's all right.
I took them to Dave to check, and then I gave them off to the actors.
So you provided them to those actors, and then they were out of your hands?
Yes.
And did you touch any other guns or dummy ammunition prior to the incident?
No. Not that day.
Right.
Okay.
Not that day. Thank you. So after you hand those guns off to those actors, what do you do? What are you doing when the incident occurs?
I am at the prop cart with Nicole, prepping props for the next day, going over the preliminary schedule.
So you're at the prop cart, and do you have any idea where Ms. Gutierrez is?
No.
What happens next?
I hear the gunshot go off and Joel scream.
When you heard the sound, what did it sound like to you? Did it sound like something that you were accustomed to hearing?
No.
How did it sound compared to, you've heard blanks go off, right? Is that a yes?
Yes.
That's okay. And how did this sound compared to, did this compare to the sound of a blank?
It was louder.
How long after you heard that sound did you hear Mr. Souza scream?
Immediately.
And did you have any idea what happened?
No.
What did you do when this happens? Tell us what happens next, and how are you able to determine that something urgent is happening?
I was asking around what happened. I originally thought it was a special effects rig that went off, and they were telling me that it was a gun, and I asked them whose gun it was, and they said, well, Alex's gun is in the church. And then I had walked over to Jensen. He was looking in the church, and I could see Joel on the ground clutching his shoulder.
What happened after that?
Jensen told me to get the guns to safety.
And so what guns did you take, and where did you take them?
I took Jensen and Swen's guns back to the cart.
To the prop cart that was located right there?
Correct.
And did you do anything with the guns when you got them to the prop cart?
I put them in their socks.
Did you take the dummies out at that point in time?
Yes.
Why did you remove the dummies from the guns right there at that point in time?
Because after they're not being in use, you completely empty them.
Now,
this is right.
Dummies are props that are reusable, correct?
Correct.
So you removed the dummies from the guns, and what did you do with the dummy rounds after you removed them?
I believe I threw them away.
And why did you throw them away?
In a state of shock and panic, I think it was a reactive decision.
And did you tell anyone that you threw those dummy rounds away?
No.
At some point in time, did you disclose that information to law enforcement?
Yes.
Okay. So when you're dealing with these other two revolvers and taking the dummy rounds out of them, and you said you threw them away, was there just a trash can right there?
It was a few feet away from the cart.
That was where you threw them?
Yes.
What do you do next, and what's happening next?
I don't know the order of events, but I know that I had called Seth Kenny. He didn't pick up my call, and I texted him emergency, and then he called me back.
Why were you calling Mr. Kenny?
I'm not sure why I did. He was kind of my mentor throughout this process, and I just called him. I told him what happened, and he was also freaking out, and that's all I remember.
And what did you tell him happened at this point in time? Did it occur to you that someone had been shot?
I didn't know Helena was hurt. I just knew Joel was. So I told him that Joel was shot.
And at this point in time, has it occurred to you that Mr. Souza was injured by a live round?
That was my impression, but I didn't physically see his wound.
Okay. Because in your experience on movie sets, do dummies or blanks cause people to fall down and scream?
No.
So when you spoke to Mr. Kinney, did you, if you recall, did you tell him any of the details about which gun it was or who loaded it or anything like that?
Not that I recall.
How long do you think that phone call lasted?
30 seconds, a minute.
Okay. After that phone call, what did you do?
Like I said, I don't know the order, but I know at some point I had talked to Hannah. She was in the middle of a breakdown, and she showed me the rounds in her hand, and she said, I swore I shook them, and I could visually see that one of them didn't have the bullet anymore.
Okay, and her statement to you was, I could swear I shook him, or I swear I shook him. Okay.
Yes.
And before I forget, I still have State's Exhibit 163 on the screen. Do you know whose hand is in that picture? Who's holding the holster?
It's Hannah.
So, at any point in time, did you, well, after, and I understand you don't know the order of things, but after, if it did in fact happen after, Ms. Gutierrez shows you the rounds in her hand, do you know, was Mr. Halls there at that time?
Not next to me. At one point, I saw him next to Hannah with the gun by the church outside of it.
Okay. So, what happens next?
After that, I go back to the cart and I start rattling dummies from a box. And I notice that some of them don't rattle like they're supposed to.
And did you tell anyone what you realized?
Nicole was standing right there, and she saw. And then I had told the police later down at base camp.
You told them
that some of the rounds didn't rattle.
Okay. And at some point later, did you mention to Ms. Gutierrez that you thought like more than half the box didn't rattle?
Yes.
Do you think that more than half the box had live rounds in it?
No.
Why do you think, why did you make that statement to her?
Originally, when I was checking it, like I said, it was chaotic. I was in shock and I was frantically rattling the rounds. But as time went on, I realized that I had forgotten that some rounds might have had a hole on the side of the rounds.
So there were some dummies in there that weren't rattlers?
Yes.
Okay, they had the hole in the side.
I didn't visually see it, but I noticed that there were a couple rounds in there with silver primers.
Okay. You noticed some silver primers?
Correct.
To the best of your recollection, do you know how many silver primers you saw?
Possibly 2 or 3.
Okay. And did you rattle those or try to rattle those?
Yes.
What happened after that?
I was on my way back with Nicole and Daniel, the art director, to take the guns back to the truck. And then I got a text message or phone call from Brian Norvell asking me to bring Hannah's personal bag to her. And so Nicole and Daniel continued to take the guns back to the truck while I did that.
Who was taking the guns back to the truck?
Nicole and Daniel, the art director.
Daniel Ornitz.
Correct.
Okay. So you didn't take the guns back to the prop truck?
No.
When you were looking in the ammo, in the box of dummies, is that something that you just did on your own, or did anyone instruct you to do that?
I don't remember.
Did you take anything off of that prop cart other than the dummy rounds that you've indicated you took out of those 2 revolvers? Did you take anything else and move it back to the prop truck or anywhere else?
No.
Did you throw anything else away other than those dummy rounds?
No.
And
Some of those dummy rounds
Ms.
could have
Zachary,
been live.
I have to ask you this. Did you bring live rounds onto that movie set?
No.
When the box of Seth Kinney 45 long Colt dummies came on set on October 12th, do you know, did anyone inspect that box?
No. Seth did.
Did you see Ms. Gutierrez inspect that box after it arrived on set?
No.
Did
BG is
Mr.
background
Kinney
actor.
ever instruct you or ask you
Bonanza
to
Creek Ranch.
plant evidence or destroy evidence?
No.
This is prosecution trying to head off any lines of questioning
The
from the
incident
defense.
after you pulled the rounds out of the box, what were you doing after that? Did you take a timeout? What was happening?
I went back down to the town. Police were telling everybody to leave the area, and I was having a panic attack in the town, and Jensen and Swen came to console me, and we were just talking about what happened and what might have happened.
Okay, you visited with those gentlemen about it?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to shift gears here. We understand that you and Ms. Gutierrez were both doing some level of armor duties. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
And you and Ms. Gutierrez were both doing some level of prop duties. Is that right?
Yes.
Did Ms. Gutierrez ever express concerns to you that she didn't have enough time to focus on her armorer duties because she was so busy doing prop work?
I don't recall that being an issue.
Did it seem to you as her coworker that she was stretched too thin and didn't have enough time to do her armorer duties?
No.
Let me just review my notes real quick.
That question was okay because it was, did it seem to her? It wasn't, so did it seem to Sarah, not did it seem to Hannah? So the speculation, she's all right with that one. Did it seem to you that Hannah went to the bathroom all the time?
Do you recall there being a time during filming where there was a discussion about doing firearms training with the child actor?
I do.
And what was your understanding of whether or not that was permitted?
Production didn't want to allow it because of the actor's age.
And if you recall, what was Ms. Gutierrez's response to that?
I know that she had wanted to train the actor off-set with the permission of his provider.
His guardian?
Yeah, guardian, yeah.
Okay.
His handler,
So
the kid's handler.
Production
or parent.
had told her that she couldn't do it, and she was going to do it with the guardian's permission. Is that correct?
As far as I remember.
Okay. Do you know whether or not that ever took place?
I don't.
I'll pass the witness.
And we get to start with
All
Cross.
right, we're going to take our evening
Oh, no Cross.
break today. So
That means we
now,
start with
so please don't
spiciness
talk among
tomorrow
yourselves
morning.
or anyone else about the evidence received here in court. Please do not look up anything about the movie production or this trial, okay? Don't do any research on your own. Thank you.
All rise.
We'll see you at 8:30 tomorrow.
The witness is doing well today. I think Sarah comes across as very believable. I think she's doing well. She really does. She comes across as believable. Very. I would not put her in the knowledgeable category. I would not put her as a backup armorer. I would not put her over an armorer as a prop witness. But it sounds believable. I couldn't see if there was any eye contact between her and Hannah. But I think we are done for the day. Let's just check. Hannah has not been looking at the witness very much. Wow, what a cliffhanger, right? It's a good thing we probably split that up. It's a good thing we split that up because poor Ian tonight is going to have a conniption. He's going to have an aneurysm. It's going to be bad. So, also tonight we have our podcast that starts at 8:00 tonight. We have the podcast from 8 to 9. I think after that there's lots of options of things to watch tonight. We also have Ivan and Ricky are going to be on after our podcast. Right now, Dr. Joe Corcoran is on with a special guest. If you love hanging out with Dr. Joe and the Advocates down there, please go check that out. That was wonderful. We're going to wrap up today. We're just going to leave it there. We're right in the middle of everything. I realize we could probably do a whole recap and say what happened today, but we're just going to leave it because I need to maintain the tension that is built up with this testimony for tomorrow morning, because tomorrow morning it's going to go nuts. It's going to go nuts with just opening up straight with fireworks. I think they're going to hit hard on this. I think it will help the defense that there's been a break between Sarah testifying directly and when she's on cross. It's not going to be fresh in their memory that she was emotional, that it was a difficult time to share these things. And I'm excited. That was me drumming on the desk. I almost never do that. Sorry, I shouldn't either. That's bad for microphones and all sorts of gear. But there's a lot. We're going to end right there. I've got a couple phone calls to make, some people who need to talk to me. We're as far as the counter goes, quick check, we ended at 338. 338. Anything else we need to talk about before we wrap up? I've got a little bit of prep work to do before the podcast, 8:00 tonight. But you do want to be there for sure. If you're out and about, please join us. It would be a lot of fun. I'm in dire need of a break before the podcast. I am as well. Dire need of a break. Portal to Dr. Joe. I can do that. We can portal to Dr. Joe. Let's see. Redirect. Dr. Goodhair. Oh man, this trial it's getting better and better by the day. All right, we will port it to Dr. Joe as soon as we're done. All right, we'll see you back here at 8:00 tonight for the podcast with Weather Watch, myself, for the Not Relevant podcast. I think we're on episode like 700. No, I don't know. It's wonderful. Season 2, like the new format, much more free-flowing. We never know where we're going to end up, and sometimes that's a good thing. So be here tomorrow for sure. If you like what you saw today, please ring the bell after you click the subscribe button. Thank you, everyone who subscribed. I appreciate that. We got to 56,000 today. Woohoo! That was awesome. Other than that, that's all. We're gonna tonight when you go home. That's what we need to do. Tonight when you go home, please hug the people you love, smile at someone, make their day just a little bit better, and please stay safe till we go live again tonight at 8:00 for the podcast. Then tomorrow morning about 9 a.m. And it's Friday tomorrow. The weekend is upon us. Hopefully you've got some plans. It'll be appropriate to share your plans tomorrow. We'll talk about that. Maybe a little bit on the podcast today. You never know. I think that's it. All right, everybody, we're going to portal over to Dr. Joe Corcoran's channel. Make sure when he lands, hit that like button. Leave your DNA all over it. We appreciate it. You guys be good to each other. We'll see you later tonight. Bye-bye.